For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, for the record, for the record, for the record, for the record. Been a little too nice to y'all. Now I gotta up price on y'all. Snake eyes on dice for y'all. Shoulders on ice for y'all. A6 all the hate. I won't get a ball today. Got lost in the ball and A's. I'm flipping the bars, I'm flipping the on record, off record. I still count wins when they got it. On record, off record. I let them take advantage. I was wildin'. On record, off record deals. Tell them talk to Colin for the quote. On record, off record. I still want the act, not the ghost. For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, 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 for the record. Price on y'all, snake eyes on dice for y'all, shoulders on ice for y'all. A6 all the hate, I won't get a ball today. Got lost in the ball and A's. I'm flipping the bars, I'm flipping the on record, off record. I still count wins when they got it. On record, off record. I let them take advantage. I was wildin'. On record, off record deals. Tell them talk to Colin for the quote. On record, off record. I still want the act, not the ghost. For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't tryna grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. Running through it with the young influence, had a lesson presence. I'm succumbing to it. I've been giving yeses when I shouldn't do it. I complete the check, but the rules elusive and I'm barely winning. But I'm still gon' boost 'em. I can't work on winners when I know you're losing. So I work the winners and they throw the losers. Guess I have to pivot, shooting no bazookas for the facts. I need racks, I get cash, the tax. That's a joke, tell 'em laugh. Uncle Sam, got the bag. Roll the block, get 'em back. Contract, give me the facts. I got laugh on my back. You ain't that, then it's raps. Whoa.
Welcome in, everybody, to probably the fanciest update show you'll ever see. I'm Aggro here. You're going to be your host for this update. And you may have seen some of the teasers going around. We are revealing Persephone today, the queen of the Underworld. And she wanted to throw a party, and it's cocktail attire. So we're all looking real fancy out here on the cast, but you'll see it in just a little bit. It's not only Persephone today, by the way, either. Lots of balance changes, a couple update notes, of course, and the tier 5 skin for Cuckoo Khan revealed today as well. So I'm glad you tuned in, because you're going to miss a big one if you're missing it. Let's take a look at some of these skin card previews, though, before we get into some of those balance notes. We'll start with Star Tyrant Ares. Looking super sweet there. That is a sweet card art. Pillow Fight Nike. Nike used to feel like she was fighting with a pillow, but maybe not so much anymore. Infinite Ruler Olorun. Olorun's first skin coming to the Battlegrounds. And then the one that you guys are all excited about, of course, Winds of Change Cuckoo Khan. You've seen this card art before, but today's the first chance you'll get to see it in-game. We've also got Spirit Guide Artio, which I believe was teased on Twitter, which looks great. Gizmo Bologna. Cool new look for Bologna. Calavera Scotty. Hopefully I said that right, because I'm not sure that I did. And then Spooky Nightmares Cupid and Spooky Dreams Kumbhakarna. Look at that dynamic duo there in the exact same card art. That's a lot of fun. We'll get to see more of those in-game and all that kind of stuff a little bit later on. But first, we've got to get it over to the balance section today. It's Pon and it's F. who's going to take you through it.
Oh, I'm not Hindu, man, but it's me, F. And we're going to be talking about balance. I got a thick book here, so we're going to be talking about, of course, Pon is going to be sitting next to us. And Fancy, yes, this is kind of what I show up in every day for the cast, but you're looking a little different.
This is my one nice piece of clothing, my wedding suit. So when they asked to wear nice things, it's the only thing I had.
You want to talk about 0 to 100. There's no in-between, just chilling and black tie for Pon. So let's get into it. One of my favorite things about the mid-season patch was how drastic some of our changes were. We've kind of talked about when we go from season to season and mid-season that we want to see some big changes. And one of the biggest things, which design as a team, but I think you were championing a lot, were those Arthurian items.
Yes.
The 4-1, after you ultimate, something crazy happens. Some of them were pretty crazy, and some of them not so much. So we kind of looked at all of them. Erendite, A is for Apple, A is for Erendite. That's where we're going to start off with. This one was one of the, let's say, I don't even want to say underwhelming, but we brought it up a little bit. The physical power will go up from 55 to 65 here.
Yeah, so we knew all these effects for all these items was going to be really potent. Erendite's ability to chase someone down and give them additional bursts is really impactful. Mirrodin's is really good with the double cast, but making sure their base stats feel justified for the amount of power they also bring to the table. And Erendite just didn't bring enough to the table in terms of stats, so that's why it's getting a 10 power upgrade.
Yeah, Erendite, some of them, everybody feels like they can buy a Pridwin. When you look at the Failnaught, same thing. Erendite, I have definitely seen people kind of glance over it, so this hopefully brings it back into some of that same level of stuff. Failnaught, again, like I said, this one has been seen all over the place. Decreased crit chance from 25% to 20, so one item won't have 25 crit on it all by itself. And there was also an issue where we fixed the buff, kind of not applying or applying.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a two-way nerf. One is just the base stats. 25% crit is really efficient. 20% is this where you get the territory of needing other crit items to really support it as much. And so this should be a nice tone down for its just overall stat efficiency. And the second fix is it was applying its debuff to non-god targets. It's supposed to be god only, and so it was boosting effectiveness against things that it wasn't supposed to be. So two nerfs to it. One's a bug fix. One's a more direct nerf.
That one always works out. Now, Pridwin, this item was, you just buy it. It's good. It's going to get you halfway to your CDR cap, and the prots are certainly nice and effective as well. We're going to keep the CDR where it is. I think that's important, and I'll let you expand on that. But the magic prots have been brought down 10, both magical and physical, so it went to 30 prots overall. But again, talk about that decision to leave the CDR where it is.
Yeah, so Pridwin is really there for the support to want to get CDR into their build, the Guardians frontline tanks who want to get it in there, as well as the amount of protections it provides needs to be associated with its cost so that it's cheap to build, because if it's too expensive, it's out of the support's ability to buy in a lot of cases. So rather than increasing the cost or decreasing the cooldown reduction, which we think are core aspects for the support players, we're just going to make the protections go down. This brings the stat distribution more in line with its overall cost. It makes it more comparable to things like Breastplate of Valor for CDR, right? That gives 65 prots. This gives 60 overall, and this should put it in a much healthier spot.
Also, just last note on Pridwin, everybody was saying it's just fun to play support with 20% CDR, so we didn't want to take that away. Again, the idea here was create some fun items. I think we did that, but this is just going to shape it up a little bit more.
And you'll also note there is no Mirrodin here.
Yes.
So Mirrodin, I think, was the one going in that everyone was like, oh, that passive is crazy, right? And we also knew that it was very expensive. Its stats were definitely lower than the other Arthurian items.
Sure.
And so we're just going to continue to watch the item. We don't want to overbuff. Like, I think most people realize now that it's very much more situational, especially because of the stats it has. We're going to look at it more as people figure out different builds and different places it can be before deciding if we need to buff or nerf it.
I'm also a big fan of player discovery. I think there's still just time for players to realize some of the ins and outs of that item. Mirrodin will get stronger without us touching it. I promise. Dynasty Plate Helm. This is one that I'm very happy about, and I think a lot of hunters will be happy about. Carries. Dynasty Plate Helm has been brought down a peg. So you're going to lose some of the magical power. 55 brought down to 50, and then you're going to lose some of that physical protection as well. 35 to 30. So it's still going to do what it is intended to do, just pretty down a peg.
Yeah, it's very efficient in regards to making it so that you can box other hunters and ADCs, or maybe even the soul lane if you want to get a little bit of armor. And it was just too effective at doing that. It limited the ability for counterplay to exist. And so we're just lowering the power, lowering the physical protection. There's more opportunity now for it's a bit less efficient in what you're trying to get out of it.
This next change, there's a lot of changes under this umbrella, and I think it's really important. If you've been watching your favorite streamers at all, you've seen the Bumbas mass kind of meta. Everything gotta go fast. Smite seems like F1 sometimes.
Yes.
So we've made a sweeping change here to movement speed in general on a lot of the items. Before we go into the details, I'll give you the platform to just kind of mention it.
Yeah, so movement speed is one of those stats that's like really effective. If you want to talk about like games going 25, 30 minutes long, just being able to move around the map faster, cutting a second off here, a second off there over the course of a whole game is a big deal. And it also means that if there's too much speed in the game becomes too evasive. People don't feel like they can accurately hit targets. It just becomes a kind of race to see who can go fastest. And so we want to make sure that we're not heading towards that territory. We're going to look at movement speed holistically across all the items that we've added it to, and then we're going to take it away in some places and bring other stats in to help those items so it's not just a loss. And then for classes that do need that movement speed, tone it down a little bit so it isn't as much as you were getting before.
So with that in mind, we'll start off at the top. Pretty big things, some pretty big rings right here. Emerald Ring, Enchanted Ring, Demonic Grip are all seeing some changes. Emerald Ring starting off at the top, the magical power increased from 20 to 25, so we are buffing that because we're taking away the 3% movement speed, and that's going to be the rank 1 of the rings. Rank 2 is the Enchanted Ring. Again, the reduced cost, so it gets a buff from 1200 to 1100, but remove the 5% movement speed, so there ain't no movement speed on that ring either. And then we get to the tier 3s, which is the real items. Demonic Grip here. Again, no movement speed whatsoever on the Demonic Grip, but the magical power getting increased from 65 to 75.
Mm-hmm. And right here is kind of, you can see the direction we're going with this is remove movement speed from these items where it's just a bonus that makes them very difficult to deal with, and also makes them very powerful without necessarily you feeling that power, and then moving that into things that will help that item. So Demonic Grip losing the movement speed is a big deal, but it is a very good stat efficient item in regards to getting basic attack damage out. We're just going to highlight that aspect a bit more by taking away the movement speed.
We did the same thing to the other rings as well. Demo Grip is going to be sort of your executioner, if you will. Mm-hmm. Take away the movement speed, boost the power. Telkine's Ring here, take away the movement speed. That's 10%. And so to supplement that, the attack speed has been increased from 20 to 25%. As I said, the 10% movement speed has been removed from that. And then the third point, we're going to increase the passive, the increased damage, magical power scaling from 10 to 15. So again, no movement speed, but more attack speed and more scaling on that passive. Yep. 10 to 15 is
yeah, no, it's focusing on the strengths item, which is to augment your basic attack damage. We want to make sure that's strong, but moving in that direction will help it when you remove the movement speed, because again, it is one of those things that does really impact the game over the long term. So we want to make sure we appropriately compensate the item for the power that we are removing from it.
And Shaman's Ring in the evolved version as well, also getting the same treatment. Does two things right now, and you're removing the movement speed, so you got to go up. Increase the cost from 2,400 to 2,500. Now that is a nerf, but because of how much everything else has changed.
Yep.
The increased magical power from 100 to 110. It's a big deal. Not a lot of items are above 100 power. We're talking Dumorb to Hootie territory. Added 10% CDR.
Yep.
And then, of course, removed the 10% movement speed. And that movement speed allows us to go ahead and move on to the final point here, which is, again, the passive. The duration mark has increased from 5 to 10. So the passive is going to be the same, but it lasts a little bit longer. But I love the decision here to increase the power and the CDR.
Yeah, so again, movement speed gone. We want to make sure this item stands out on its own. And so we wanted to highlight the passive, which is the you mark a target, you get to do more. CDR further augments that. The longer duration means that you don't have to reapply it as much. If you're a character with more longer burst windows rather than multiple rapid fire abilities, you can now use this item more effectively. And we generally felt that while bringing all these stats did help the item get its kind of own identity, we did have to increase the cost a little bit because all those stats did outweigh 10% movement speed just a little bit.
And so what's fun about these items, like I said, they have all done two things. They've made you faster and done one of these things. We took away the faster part and let it do the thing that it does a little bit better. Something I'm noticing, that's the last ring. We didn't touch the hasten ring whatsoever.
Yeah, so Hasted Ring, that's its kind of whole focus. It's really there to help you run down opponents. It's that haste effect is really strong. We've done adjustments to it very recently to make sure that its power is more appropriate, and so we felt that it was appropriate to have that stay in the same state it is.
So just to reiterate, the rank 1 and the rank 2 rings won't have movement speed because the other 3 don't, but Hasten Ring will still have it because it just, that's what it's supposed to do. We didn't have to -1 to increase the other, so just leave it alone. That's the mage situation. Now we look towards the Katana tree, which also got some adjustments. Katana level 1, the movement speed from 5% to 3%, and then 1,000-fold blade, that's level 2. That goes down from 8% to 5%. So again, like Pon said at the beginning, we're not removing it from the assassins. They theoretically need it a little bit more than the mages, but we are bringing them down a little bit, which I think is important for the overall health of the game. Ranks 1 and 2, you get it. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Masamune, this is the blue sword. This is the one that I like to see. The increased health, this makes a lot of sense, it's from 100 to 150, and then after that, they're going to decrease the movement speed from 10% to 7%. So a similar feel with the mage items, bring it down a little bit, but increase what it does.
Yep, Masamune is the kind of engage, bruiser, frontline item. You want to be in the middle of a whole bunch of opponents. Just make it a little bit better at doing that. And you'll see here as we shift movement speed down rather than remove it, the buffs that we're going to bring to items to compensate either won't necessarily be there or it'll be more minor compared to what we did to the ring tree.
When we look towards the green sword, the stone cutting sword, this one gets a nerf, decreased movement speed from 10% to 7%, but I think you were kind of foreshadowing with what you just said, because that's the only change to this item. No buff to compensate.
We feel like this item for the characters that use it effectively is just really good. If you have built-in attack speed stims, if you can get on targets to get a few hits, it's not only making you tankier, but in a lot of cases it's even being more damage efficient than something like Executioner, just because of the amount of flat pen it's providing. And so we felt this item could just actually take the movement speed nerf, and we didn't need to necessarily adjust it. A lot of the characters that are using it well are also some of the most winning gods in the game right now. So we are going to watch how these changes kind of affect those gods, but for now we're just doing the movement speed reduction.
And the last item here as far as movement speed, and I love, we have some dev notes here, and I'm going to read the first sentence because I love it. Meme or not, this item provides a lot of movement speed for seemingly high risk. It's Bumba's Mask. They're going to increase damage taken by 10%, all the way up to 15%, and then decrease the damage dealt from 10% all the way up to 15%.
Yeah, if you want to go fast, you can go fast, but you're not going to hit as hard, and you're going to take some more damage for it.
Yeah, like I said, seemingly high risk. The risk was not high enough.
Yeah,
so
10% is something that you'll start to begin feeling, but you won't necessarily notice it, and just the increased evasiveness is so good, as well as the CDR. So by making those more pronounced, you're going to feel that downside more.
So the movement speed has been touched for sure. Mages, specifically mage ADCs, won't be running around rampant, and even the assassins will be a little bit slower, but don't cry over spilt milk. You will have a little bit of movement speed in the jungle or wherever you're playing your assassins. So good stuff there. Moving on from items into the god world. We're going to start off at the top, and somewhere AJ is cheering because Anubis is getting a change here. The base HP increase 350 to 380, and the increase base HP per level also from 66 to 70. And I want to, we have another change here to Anubis, but I want to touch on base changes like that, because sometimes sitting at home, it's hard to grasp what base HP and HP per level quite mean. How do you kind of summarize this for players at home?
It's again one of those things that over the course of a game, having extra health does things not only in just like, oh, I got away with 10 HP where I wouldn't have the patch before, but also it changes the way your opponents play around you. When they look at you and go, if I engage right now, I might not be able to get this kill. That changes their decision making. It lets you make different opportunities. And for Anubis, who kind of needs to go forward into things, that level of confidence, being able to walk forward and knowing that you're likely to survive or be able to get more lifesteal, get your passive going, is just a big deal for him throughout the whole game.
When it comes to base HP and HP per level and like attack speed, a base level, for me, that's what it is to have a feels change. You might not understand the point per level, but you'll know how tanky you are at level 3 or lack thereof. And then the other change is going directly where you were talking about getting your abilities out there. Grasping Hands is getting some nice love here. Decrease the mana cost from 70 all the way up to 90. And we're going to change that from 60 up to 80. So you're going to spend less mana on that 3. And then, of course, decreased cooldown as well. It used to start at 15 seconds and go down to 11. Now we're going to start at 14 down to 10. 1 second really makes a difference sometimes, huh?
Yeah, it's not only safer wave clear, but better zoning opportunities if you can't go forward and actually Plague of Locust Breath an opponent because they're going to just turn on you and kill you. You have access to this slow area, zone denial, and if you can trap them in a pretty significant damage more often.
Fun changes there for Anubis. Maybe we'll see some more of him. Arachne is going to be next, and hopefully we see less of her in my specific rank games. Ban her if you're playing with me. She's very, very powerful. And because of that, she's been brought down a peg. Venomous Bite, that's going to be the lifesteal, the number 1. That's healing per tick has been brought down. It used to start at 10 to 50 and then get 10% scaling. Now it's going to go from 8 to 40 with only 8% scaling. That's a big, big nerf. And the web change is going to be important as well. 25% is how much it used to be slowed by the spider web. Now it's going to go down to 15. Seems drastic, because it is. But she also gets movement speed on that web, so...
So I think the important thing to read here is Arachne is strong. Every metric shows that. We've been talking about it for months now, but we've actually seen now ban rates for the character also rising to the point where she's on the top of the ban list too. So this is something that why I think a lot of players would initially go, it's kind of weird to see Arachne get a nerf. Players who are playing the game and banning in ranked are banning Arachne because she is a significant threat. We've seen her also come into pro games every so often, so she's definitely there. She's definitely potent enough to deserve a nerf. And so we're targeting specifically here the things that make her very difficult to ever box against. If she ever gets on you, you know that you're likely dead. We want to give you a bit more agency to be able to fight back and not have her just out-sustain any damage that you do. So that's why the scaling nerf is there and the base damage nerf is there. But we also want to have you have a chance to escape. She is getting, I think, 40% movement speed on that web. So really the speed differential was 65%. We're reducing it to 55%. So she's still going to chase you. She's still going to be able to run you down, but just that extra breathing room that you might be able to get after you leap, or breathing room for her to like not get directly on you while you're running back to your tower, those things are going to help you escape Arachne a bit more effectively.
I think the important point is that the identity of the character, you still don't want to fight the bug, but now you have a chance at all. You're saying there's a chance. And also kind of a shout out to you guys, didn't dumb down the character. You can still do the weird blue buff clear if you start your spider, so there's still some intricacy there for the hardcore Arachne fans. Cool change. Chiron, the horseman. He hasn't been seeing much play, so we're going to see his base stats increase as well, just like Anubis. The base attack speed going from 1.1 to 1.4, which again is a large jump in base, and the masterful shot is going to be a big change. 25% is where it used to slow. Now it's going to start there, but go all the way up to 35% once you rank it up. And, you know, I don't have to tell you that 10% more slow is actually a really big deal.
Yep. For hunters, especially ability hunters like Chiron, we've learned over the course of Smite's lifetime that they need some utility to really justify their ability hunter role over someone like Artemis Vengeful Assault running you down with a whole bunch of attacks. And so the base stats will help move him closer to what those hard carries can do without like going too far into their role. And also additional utility is going to help him land some shots when he can, just give him his team more utility, really highlight the ability part of him where we give him some base level so that he can compete in the late game and not be completely overshadowed.
Chiron, ability based. The other side of the coin here, we've got the mage that's attack speed based. Chronos, let's go. That's what we're going to change. Not the voice line, but we're going to bring Accelerate down just a little bit. His initial movement speed starts at 25, and it ramps up as you have the buff going on. Now it's going to start at 15%, and that's a big change. But again, this character has been kind of everywhere.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we watched Cronus after he did all the item changes recently. We expected it to hit him more than others because he was building those items, and he didn't seem to move much, which went to more a core problem that he has too much ability in the laning phase. And so specifically, we felt his Accelerate, just like how we talked about movement speed to all these items, when you have that level of movement speed, the ability to out-rotate people, the ability to juke their incoming shots really effectively, becoming too evasive, can just really boost your ability to do the things. And so we are reducing the movement speed here to give players more opportunity to fight against Chronos, less escapability, less boxing potential overall. This will have a ripple impact across his whole game.
All of his items lost movement speed, and he's losing movement speed on the kit. That was one decision conversation, right?
Yeah, and he's really strong too, which is this is why we discussed not doing further nerfs to him, right? This is the one nerf we wanted to do to him because while we could go further with this, he is getting those other item changes, and those are targeting aspects about him that we do feel are going to be the strong points that really affect him. So we didn't want to overdo it.
Still keep an eye on him, because you might have said he didn't move much. You meant on the charts. He moved all over the map, so we're going to make sure that doesn't happen as much. Hera, a character that was fun when she came out, but kind of got really dropped down, and so she's going to get some love here. The polymorph damage is going to increase. It started at 60 and would rank up all the way up to 240. Now that's getting some love, starting at 80 and going to 240. So specifically, the early game is getting changed here for Hera.
Yeah, so when she was released, she was really strong. Argus did a lot of damage. We did some adjustments there to make sure that players felt like they could fight against Argus effectively, and her burst a bit more manageable. Sure. And then over that, we now see that she's in a state when she starts the game. Her early capability of trading with people and being effective is just not consistent. You either have a really good matchup where you can go forward, or you don't. And so giving Polymorph a little bit more base damage, especially in the early game, is just going to help that early game be more consistent. She's going to be able to get online more consistently, and when she's online, Argus is a pretty big threat. Yeah,
you can engage from ranged and knock a bunch of players up. My Polymorph can do a little bit less damage then. In the early game, a little bit less so. One of my favorite mages right now, and absolutely the top of the chart, is going to be Isis. So Isis has gotten a change. She's still pretty strong. But we are going to make the change to the ultimate here. So the mitigation's 25%. We jumped over the 20% mark, and that's where we're going to peel it back to.
Yeah, so it was 15 scaling to 20 before. We went straight to 25. We're finding the middle ground there. And why this might look like a not enough of a change for Isis, we know that when she comes into play, players have to get a bit of time adjusting to her being more often in games. And so rather than just bringing out all the nerfs right at once, we want to make this targeted change, which we do think was giving her too much survivability at all stages of the game, especially in like when players tried to engage with her ult, she could answer back really effectively. So we want to make sure that that's toned down a little bit, and then we'll continue to watch her performance, how players learn to play around her before deciding on more nerfs.
Control mages are definitely a little bit more interesting to balance than when we talk about some of the more traditional mages. And, how do you numerize some of these options? So we'll see how it all balances out. And then Giannis. I want to give a special shout out to Clumsy Death out there. Giannis has gotten a buff.
It happened.
1 second decreased on the cooldown for Unstable Vortex.
Yep, so this is a partial revert of a change. It was at 8 seconds, and he was incredible at farming mid-harpies. He was incredible at rotating between objectives, and he could just really poke often. And so we nerfed it to 10 seconds, and we saw him fall off. He had already been struggling at all other levels of play as overall, and so when we took a character who is really good in the hands of skilled players and skilled teams, and also nerfed him too hard so he's not even seeing play there, we know that we went a bit too far. We're finding the middle ground. We hope 9 seconds will be a good point for him, that skilled Giannis players can really make use of him.
Again, control mage, kind of similar conversation to Isis there, where very small things to tweak. Big things to tweak here, because Jormungandr, that's a big guy. We're changing some,
Yeah, this is a lot, and it's probably just better for me to explain.
Yeah, you know what? Jormungandr, your turn.
So the patch notes overall have changes of like decreased magical power scaling and decreased like bonus damage. The thing here is when he consuming Bellows, he takes the gas clouds around him, and that augments his damage. It was calculating incorrectly and not reducing the amount it was providing per cloud in regards to magical power scaling. So we've made a lot of numbers adjustments here.
So he was doing more or less damage than he was supposed to?
He was doing more than intended.
Okay.
And so, or he was doing less than intended. So now we have fixed it so that he will be getting the proper scaling. The math is being done correctly, but we've decreased numbers in his kit so that they are supposed to be as close to the same as possible. Our goal with this change is not to impact his balance. Our goal is to fix the bug and then do the math needed to make it so he performs exactly the same. So you'll see numbers changes. They're a bit confusing, but that's the goal.
6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, hopefully. And obviously, we'll keep an eye on it and make sure it gets shifted back to as normal as possible. And then the last god change here is going to be Olorun. He has come out, but he has come out a little bit too short. And so his base health is going to get a little bit more brolic, 400 to 450. We talked about the importance of base health and what that means. Just being able to walk up into the lane a little bit more effectively. And then, of course, a change to Focus Light. This is the base damage increase. It started at 100 and went up to 260. Now we're talking 100 to 280, so that end game damage from the giant orb is going to be winding up a little bit more devastating in the late game.
Yes. Olorun is designed to be a hunter through and through. He has the mage tag, but he is meant to fulfill that hunter role as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so when we looked at his base stats, we looked at his base health, and he really was still in the mage class, which for a character that we designed so heavily to really fill that hunter role actually felt awkward. And so we've increased his base health to match the hunter class out, and so he's actually on the top end of mage class now. But this is really just to move him more in that hunter direction. And then as other hunters need, Focus Light is one of those abilities that like it kind of rounds out your damage as you build your basic attack damage. Like other characters have like their standard core like clear ability or poke ability that they need until their basic attacks can really take over. We're just making sure Olrens fulfills that role a little bit harder hitting when you rank it up.
Sometimes when it didn't crit, you just went, what?
Yeah.
Then when it crits, you're like, what? So kind of fill in that in between. The last change is going to be Zeus. He's been removed from the game. I'm just kidding, but it's Aggro's turn now, and I wanted to see his face.
Can't just say that, man. Like, there are lots of us that really like Zeus. What was that about? Tom's not allowed on the show ever again. I'm making the executive decision. That's not going to work for me. All right, it's time to get into some of the skins that we previewed a little bit earlier on. To do that, we've got Tina, we've got AJ, and we've got Chris joining us here. Everyone looking nice and dapper, though AJ certainly cannot get away from the Amaterasu shirt no matter what.
I was surprised at how well my suit paired with this shirt, but you know,
You really think so,
sometimes
huh?
you just get lucky and you just look good, so that's what we'll do.
Pure luck, as always, I'm sure. All right, we'll start it off with Star Tyrant Ares. This one, I hadn't seen the card art for before. I'm here for this one, guys. This is super sweet. He's got a lot of different, he's got a more modern feeling skin. He's got the tier 5, of course, the more, mythological. Sci-fi Ares is something I can get down with, you know?
We're trying to really make sure our sci-fi skins
Yeah.
make a big impact on the game. And we try not to overdo them, make sure that there's no gods that have conflicting themes, but this was something that we felt was really absent from Ares' skin repertoire.
Yeah, I think it looks awesome. In fact, we've got a little preview of the voice pack here. Let's take a listen.
My armies will consume this universe without end like a great black hole. I will conquer your entire solar system, from Pluto to Uranus.
Why?
Yeah.
My hate burns hotter than 1,000 suns.
So, Tina, that was not you, is what? You were pleading to AJ.
Why
that it
are we
wasn't you.
choosing the jokes for this show? That's my question. I've said it so many times that the jokes. This is not the best case to highlight jokes. People like jokes, though.
That's
and they're
true.
the
That's
hardest
good.
thing for the designers to write, so I appreciate them.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But let's look at some effects and some ability animations here.
Yeah, Chris, Ares, I think we definitely talked about it. Wow, that is sweet. We talked about it when it came to the tier 5. Ares is like just kind of doing his thing. It doesn't seem like a god that you can make that many flashy things happen with.
Yeah.
But somehow you guys managed to make it look great every time.
Yeah, the artists that did this, I mean, they did a great job with the, our pattern hexagons that we always have. They're really nice. And I was going to say, if the sword doesn't glow, I'm going to be very disappointed, but it does.
Oh, it does.
It's got a
Excellent.
very nice glow, too.
Yeah, and it's glowing and looks sharp all at the
Yeah.
same time. Let's take a look at the ultimate. We haven't seen No Escape quite yet. That is cool. That is super cool. I love the. I don't know, something about those like hexagon like flashing effects gets me just about every
Audio,
time.
too, sound really good. The sound effects there,
Yep.
very, very powerful sounding.
My power.
That is awesome.
I think that's what he says.
Super cool. Absolutely love that one. All right, we got to move on to Pillow Fight Nike. Next up, I
She's
do believe.
cute.
This is one that like I never would have thought of it. By the way, love these the plushy skins around in the card art look awesome. I never would have thought of like Pillow Fight Nike, but I'm like that's gonna be a good skin as soon as I saw it.
Oh, it's so good.
She has a good balance now of skins. She's got a darker one and then more angelic one, and now she's got just something fun.
Yeah, super fun here. Let's take a listen to the voice pack.
This slumber party is going to be the best as yet. I'll be the next pillow fighting champion. I'm so good at sleeping, I can do it with my eyes closed.
That is good. I wasn't sure if there
My
was another one.
dragon
Oh,
will num-num you for lunch.
that is awesome. It's definitely. Oh yes, I was hoping that the sound effect right away was the first thing I thought of.
She's so cute, dude.
Look at the dragon's face when she swings it back,
Yeah.
and it's like it's holding on for dear
I
life while
know.
she's swinging it around.
To slow-mo it, see, it's like, ah!
I can imagine that dragon just internally screaming for its entire
Ew,
existence.
it is.
That is awesome.
Oh.
Man, are you really like putting a pillow on a stick? That seems like kind of cheating.
It's a hobby horse.
Its hands
It's a
move.
hobby dragon.
They wiggle when she's swinging it.
Oh yeah, her wings. Yeah, they are.
No, the arms on the dinosaur.
The arms on the dragon.
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
has quite like ragdoll physics on his arms and like just waving around.
It's so cute.
Look at that! Look, I'll do that again. The side strafe
The
while you're
side
doing the
strafe.
Catch me doing this all the
Oh,
time.
it's so
Another thing you
good.
might notice here is while she's channeling her 2, it's playing a sound, which was something with the rework of Nike was lost. It was a bug. That's being fixed for Nike and all Nike skins. So there was some big Nike fans out there, especially with the 4th of July Nike that were
Look at his face.
had lost her patriotic music. That will be returned to you
Okay.
with this update. So it's also used in this skin. It's used in all of her skins. So.
Great. Good to know for sure.
God,
That
it's
is-
cute.
That is super cool. Oh, I love the glowing scales that she gets in her ultimate. It looks like those are a little bit brighter whenever
Also
she
worked
has
with a
those.
voice actress this time that I've never worked with before, and she was so sweet and so fun to work with. Her name's Sophia Espinosa.
Oh, please, Tina.
Sophia. Shout out to Sophia.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Number 1.
I'll tweet the full name.
There you go.
We're constantly looking for new talented voice actors. You know,
Yeah.
keep expanding the overall roster of Smite. I think it's great whenever we can find new people to work with who turn out to do great work.
Man,
The
that little
squeaks are
face
too
is-
good.
Yeah.
The squeaks are
squeakies.
great. The face on the 3. This one is going to be fun to go up against.
And now that she's running the duo lane a little bit more, you could run this with the Artemis skin.
Yeah.
Oh, you can.
So you can just have
Have
a
the full pillow
super
party.
cuddly duo lane. And you
It
can
won't
maybe
be that
battle
cuddly.
against the duo lane we'll be talking about later today.
Yeah, that is fair. All right, let's go to Infinite Ruler Olorun. Olorun's first skin since joining up, besides, of course, recolors and masteries and all that. And it's one that I'm always a sucker for the cosmic theme, man. I can't help
love it.
It just looks cool. What do you want from me, you know? Let's take a listen to the voice pack here for Infinite Ruler Olorun.
There must be chaos to balance the order, but always light to fend off the infinite void.
Oh, man.
Knock knock. Who is there? Me. And I have no time for jokes. Stop. Your efforts are pathetic.
Wow.
All right, that joke was kind of good. I'll give it up.
It's an anti-joke.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of those.
So you have more of an infinite
Yeah.
theme here.
Yeah.
But
It looks a little bit-
Olorun as a character has a lot of cosmic themes, so we're
Right.
you kind of get a good merger of those skin themes because oftentimes when we're skinning a god, we'll try to use the god's core theme in ways as well.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, the effects team went really all out on this one, Chris.
It's really crazy. Yeah, these infinite skins, they always tend to have really cool effects, but I think this one just tops them all. This is really sick.
That is so cool. Just like, we don't have very many weird shaped things like
Whoa.
that, you know? Everything's nice and smooth and round or
Yeah.
nice and
Is he
square.
missing a stomach?
That's part of the infinitiness of him.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
Missing a little bit of his.
He doesn't have to eat.
Exactly.
Some of his
That's a
limbs,
sad
and some of
existence.
his. Yeah.
I know that is a sad thing.
Maybe he
just
can
eats
just
for fun.
eat all he wants of whatever he wants in the whole universe with
That
no
is a
downsides.
great existence,
Yeah.
for sure. Definitely
As
a top 3 genie wish for what it's worth.
Right.
Being able to eat whatever you want without any negative
As
repercussions.
an infinite cosmic creator, he's probably capable of that.
Yeah,
God.
I would assume as much.
I think. Oh my gosh.
Someone must have known to show that one specifically.
Absolutely. Oh, that is really cool tech.
I love the triangle pattern we use in all these kind of, and then especially when you get the kind of shattering feel with it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, your reality being
So
shattered.
this is a reward skin for your completion of the 3rd chapter of the Battle for Olympus event.
correct.
And those skins we just showed ahead of time, right? The Nike and
They
Air,
are part
those
of
are
Battle
the
for
last
Olympus.
2.
Correct.
So with this skin, we wrap up the Battle for Olympus, but of course we have to show.
Yeah, I was gonna say, AJ. Doesn't
This
that
is
mean
just
that
the
we
3rd
should-
reward. This is not the final
reward.
What
Yeah.
What is the final reward, you may ask? Well, it's Winds of Change Kukulkan, the Tier 5 skin
Oh,
that we've been
goodness.
talking about quite a bit. And I have not seen anything for this, and I am super stoked
Oh, it's
to take a look
amazing.
at it in game. Of course, I imagine that we do have one of those voice pack videos ready for it, and let's take a listen.
A new world is born every moment, but not even the most powerful god can know the destiny of each of them. Soon you will see the beauty of nothingness. I have a feeling there will be a good bit of unnatural selection occurring on this battlefield today.
Wow, that is so sick.
That's a pretty raw
Holy.
line.
That's just the back animation?
That's the recall animation. So the team really went above and beyond on this. The entire Smite team, especially animation effects, of course, all of the art pipeline, all the way from modeling, concept art, tech art, rigging, had a ton of work to do on this skin to make it. We keep trying to top ourselves with these tier 5s, and a whole lot of effort went into this, and I really just want to thank our entire team.
Okay, so if you haven't heard anything about the skin beforehand, there are 3 different forms that were showed off there. We have Celestial, Void, and Life. I'm guessing this is the Celestial.
Yes.
Right, you will start in Celestial form, and it's kind of a mini story of the universe in a skin.
Okay.
At the beginning, there is creation and light, and in between, you have life and survival and struggle and evolution, and then eventually, you just have the empty, absent void of space.
Right, because nothing we do matters. It's all going to go into the void eventually.
In the
Anyways,
end, we are
feel
just
really
a
good about
speck
it.
on top of a tiny speck floating in the middle of an empty, infinite nothingness.
Well, that's
That's
sad.
some nihilist
But
stuff.
when you get to the life, you gotta live, you know? And that's why that's part of this skin as well.
Okay, so does it change like a lot of other tier 5s as you level?
This one actually changes every time you fire the ultimate.
Oh.
And you also have the ability to use the special emote VXG to change.
See, you just changed.
Holy. That was so smooth. I didn't even see when it happened, to be honest. I would guess I was looking at the big dragon.
It's a
coming over
change
the
at the
top.
beginning of the ultimate fire, and what it'll do, it'll change to the next form, and the ultimate effects will look like the next form.
Okay.
And it always rotates through life or celestial to life to void.
Wow.
So when you
Unicorn
fire
dragon's
the
my
ultimate
favorite.
on the life, you'll switch to the void. You'll see a void dragon ultimate.
Man, that is cool. So this is an all-new basic attack animation for him for this skin, it looks like.
Look at the character. He's a totally different shape.
Yeah.
Every single one is completely
This is
different.
truly a tier 5. He's got arms and legs and multiple arms, and he's got multiple arms here.
He
He's
has
got
no
tails.
legs.
He's got a very upright posture, a little bit different than base Kukulkan. He had
that
a
is
lot
so
of rigging
cool.
work
That's really
and animation work. And then, of course, the effects team always went all out. All 3 forms, completely unique set of animations and effects. 3
Holy.
completely new voice pack
Packs,
per form.
That is so cool, dude.
And
My
right
mind is being
when you hit
blown.
the Odin with the void, they get these other little cool effects. So you get very different take. You get these extra beams instead of the whirlwinds.
Yeah.
It's always
Oh, yeah,
a
you
nice
get
part
some
about
beams.
tier 5s is that
Yeah.
you can just kind of take it a little bit over the top, maybe in a new
Just a little
direction, you know. But
Oh,
this
now you're
looks,
back.
I mean, this skin turned out great. It's
That
amazing.
is awesome. And as AJ mentioned, you can cycle with the VXG. I believe that is not working in this current build, but it will be in the future. So you'll
Yep.
be able to change as you please along those 3. Man, you really... Every time I'm like, there is no way a tier 5 could be better than this. There's no way.
Just
like
the-
Ares 360 dunking with his ult, nothing could be cooler than that. And then it's a Kukulkan that changes 3 times depending on what
I love the colors on the life form,
Yeah.
just of
my
the
favorite.
scales and the feathers, but then the effects as well. They're amazing. I love this skin.
Man, again, that is your reward for completing the Battle for Olympus. All 3 chapters, you get reward skins for completing each chapter individually as well. Plenty of things in there, so make sure you get it while you can so you can get your hands on Winds of Change Kukulkan. We know you guys are hanging around for Persephone, but we've also got some other things to go over first. So we're going to throw it back to Tom and Isaiah on the desk just after this.
Smite Blitz, baby. It's on mobile. I saw the words chalk, and that's what I'm going to be here to talk about. I'm F. Dot, and I'm joined here by community specialist, sensationalist, Isaiah.
Sensationalist. I
You're
like
wearing the
it.
11s, man.
That's
It's
right,
pretty
man.
sensational.
I had to do it to him.
So we're going to talk to you a little bit about some mobile games. Pre-registration and pre-orders are available for Smite Blitz. And as I said, chalk. You can get them early by doing just that.
That's right. Yeah, Smite Blitz available right now for pre-registration on iOS and Android. The more people that pre-register, the more rewards that you can get when the game launches. So I believe Chalk is going to be that final reward. And you'll also be able to get some in-game currency for Smite Blitz if enough people pre-register. So be sure, open up the App Store, the iOS, Google Play Store, pre-register Smite Blitz, and get ready.
Oh, I was actually just getting my chocolate.
Oh, okay, cool.
I was just getting
Nice,
my game
nice.
on right now. I guess I'll have to wait till later. But so that's going to be fun on the mobile game, of course. But on the PC, we've got some stuff coming out for you guys as well. Skin deals.
That's right. Who doesn't love deals,
Yeah,
right?
deals, man.
So we've got a new deal section headed to the in-game store coming out in this update, and it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So we're actually looking at past exclusive skins that have been in chests or events. We noticed that, it's a feels bad type moment, when, especially for new players, when you open up the game, you see this awesome new skin, and you see this exclusive tag, and you don't know when it's coming back. So this new deal section will be along with the daily deals, but is a separate thing. It will have 3 different exclusive skins that will rotate and be available for direct purchase. And the plan is to have that store deal section rotate around every Friday. That way, past exclusive skins will be available for direct purchase.
That works out for me. Come home after the SPL games. SPL airs every Thursday and Friday, obviously, at 11 a.m. And so with that in mind, you go home, you get some skins on the Friday deal.
Exactly.
Gotta love it. Gotta be having it. And, of course, I'm here, so we're going to have a party, man.
Right.
Any excuse for me. Community celebration is what's going on. I just see the word celebration and stop reading, so I'm going to you explain what's going on.
Yeah, so we were thinking about, the RDO skin that was coming out. Shout outs to Fiona Art or at Noazette on Twitter for the amazing concept for Spirit Guide RDO, which is coming your way this update. And we were just looking for ways to just celebrate the community. We really appreciate you guys. We wouldn't be here without you. So in years past, the community skin every year has been available for direct purchase, but we're kind of brainstorming this event. And we wanted to, step it up a notch. So in this new community celebration event, everyone will be able to earn Spirit Guide RDO absolutely for free.
If it's for free, it's for me. That's generally my rule of thumb.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
no, this is really big, man. Yeah. I don't know if you remember, but I'm here, but I started just making YouTube videos in the community, man. And so seeing this is the ultimate shout out to you guys. You guys give us an idea. We just kind of give it back to you.
Exactly.
I've never really seen that here.
Yeah. And this is kind of like a new type of an event that we haven't done before. So the way it's going to work is the more games that the community collectively plays, there's going to be a progress bar. So the more games that are played by the community, the more rewards in this event that will activate and are able to be earned. So the more the community plays, the more rewards that activate, and then the more you play, the more rewards you unlock. And then the final reward is Spirit Guide RDO. That's
some old school stuff. We had some things like that way back when, and I remember playing games like World of Warcraft where the whole server has to get together to get one big deal. Well, this is the thing. Now you get your homies to play, and you get everybody to play, and everybody's going to be ramping up these rewards.
Right, and you get to unlock an absolutely amazing skin, and I believe we've got the card art ready. We're going to hop in the game and show it off.
Yeah, this is going to be that Spirit Guide RDO one. Again, shout outs to the inspiration from some of the artists in our very young community, which, frankly, shout out to all of them. The artists in our community are dope, and they give us stuff like this on the regular. Obviously, not just a skin. We got the voice pack as well. Bring us a track.
Humans aren't too friendly to supernaturals. Maybe we should have stayed in the spirit realm.
Very Japanese
I don't
inspired.
have a spirit animal, because I am a spirit animal.
Oh!
There you go. There's the fox.
I like the dog. Fox, excuse me. Big fan. Big
You
fan.
have
I like
no
the
idea
scepter.
what I can unleash here.
I like the scepter, too. That's really cool looking. And here she is in-game. She's going to go mess up some Odin. Toss the basic attacks, and obviously this is where we talk a lot about the effects and everything. But for real, what I like about the skins here is always the core concept, right? So the whole thing, Spirit Guide, but everything's tying in with the pink and the green. That's really that's a style guide me coming out.
Definitely, right?
But the color motif is a big deal on all of these. There's the cripple field and some of the stuff, and it's all cohesive.
Right, yeah, so definitely shout outs again to Fiona Art. This concept was inspired very much by Japanese culture, so you can see the hints of pink, the cherry blossoms. The original concept was actually called Kitsune RDO, and that's where you kind of get this fox spirit from.
Looking pretty dope. And again, this is RDO is normally a bear. You change it to a dog. I'm never going to complain. Fox, I know. But the canine family is open, and we're a big fan of this. Again, shout out to the details. Some of those markings on the back are really sick, and the ins and outs here are really nice.
Yes, it looks absolutely amazing. So be sure we'll have more details on when this event starts. Keep an eye on social media, but we're going to hop on to the next skin, which is a great one.
Right. As Isaiah mentioned, this is kind of like think of like a community-wide battle pass, if you will. The more games we all play will unlock more. Gizmo Bologna is one of these options as well, and this is really where I like to live.
This skin turned out absolutely amazing. When I heard the pitch, they were like, we're going to make Bologna a future space mechanic. I was like, huh? But wait till you guys see it in game. It looks awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of attitude here. Let's hear what she sounds like as well, because she just looks pretty damn cool.
I guarantee a fast service, no matter how long it takes.
Oh, so there's that mechanic, she's going to fix your car.
Listen, it's not rocket science. Wait, actually, Bella, it is. Rocket science.
All right. So are we getting Smite
I wouldn't step any closer, buddy. I'm in the mood to throw a wrench.
I don't know if anyone can fix the Smite carts the way we want it to. But definitely Gizmo Bologna can definitely give it a shot. And these effects turned out absolutely amazing. My favorite thing about Bologna skins is watching her kind of switch weapons. And these turned out awesome.
Yeah, I love to see the inspiration of where the items are going to go. So she's got the wrench on one there. She got the sword board. That's kind of like obviously like a megaton hammer. It's kind of doing the thing. And that, all right, that's cool. That's absolutely what I would expect some like future chain to be like. I like the retract. Watch, if we stop basic attack, it retracts back into itself. That's really sick.
Yeah, this skin turned out really great, and you heard it in the voice pack. But along with these animations, the team was really going for a spunky mechanic type vibe.
Oh yeah,
this really shows in the skin.
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. She's got some attitude. I have probably met her before. She definitely seems like the type of girl that would ruin my life. Here she is just doing her thing. And fantastic stuff with Gizmo Bologna. That's just one of them. We got more. Scotty is going to come up next. This is fun because this fits in with the Loki theme.
Exactly.
Remember the Loki skin?
We're going with the Day of the Dead vibes in Calavera Scotty. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
It is. You're right, Calavera. And we've got, again, the duck. This is actually the only reason they invited me.
Right?
Multiple dog skins. And so, as we said, Calavera Scotty coming through. Let's take a listen to what she's got to say.
The Day of the Dead is upon us once again. My family has put out so many ofrendas for Caldo and me.
I love the accent. I
hate the winter. The cold goes right through me.
This dog is insane. I can't wait to see it again.
Mess with the spirits, and they will mess with you.
I believe that, Scotty. I absolutely believe that.
This skin looks so great. I was talking with AJ a couple days ago, and we were really brainstorming. We've seen Day of the Dead concepts pop up on social media all the time.
Right.
And we've tried to do it, but, we determined, just adding a little bit of pop of color just really elevates the concept, and it really shows in the skin. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it does. Again, talking about that cohesive color scheme here. You've got this Calavera, and it's very, like she said, Day of the Dead, and it's supposed to be kind of,
those textures.
Death infused, but it's the like purple blue spiritual side, not the like death and decay type, like everything is black and death.
Right. It's very much a celebration, right?
Yeah. It's the celebration. That's what we're doing. I mean, it's community celebration all overall. I love though, and this is unrelated. We recently changed it to where Scotty can just yeet Calder out there at a target. He's got wings on this skin.
Exactly. Yeah. And the effects team actually went nuts. They actually added. This actually came in like late yesterday. But some really cool, like almost blacklighty effects on the ultimate.
Yeah, everything there. Yeah, it definitely looks like everything would react to a blacklight. It fits the whole theme. Very, very cool here. And again, shout out to our Loki players out there because it's going to be in that skin family. Coming up next, we've got another kind of spooky, scary skeleton. It's going to be Spooky Nightmares Cupid, and you can see Spooky Dreams Kumbhakarna there on the same card. We'll take a look at what Cupid is doing first. He's spooky, but he's tiny. Let's hear what he's got to say.
You are in the presence of the gruesome twosome.
I'm sorry. I was not Isaiah, I was not
How did the monster get caught? He trips it over the mess on your floor.
I did not. I expected a more normal Cupid voice. That's great.
I'm gonna bite your face. No, just a little.
He is so cute, but he is ferocious.
And thankfully, obviously, a lot of new stuff. The old stuff, though, gotta keep the dance. You can't change the Cupid dance.
That's right.
That little that little shuffle he's got going on there. So that kept the same. What are the hearts? Okay. Little, like, bags of magic monster.
Little magic
fairy
monster
power.
bags, yeah.
Okay. I like that. That's
But yeah,
cute.
we absolutely love
the Sandman Dreams.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yay. We're putting two and two together here. Speaking of putting two together, we absolutely love the Biohacker and Kali skins that came out, and we kind of coupled them together. So the art team really wanted to do it again. So we kind of went with this like spooky vibe here. And as Cupid says, he and Kumbhakarna are definitely the gruesome twosome.
Right there, some more fun stuff on the Ultimate. There's a VXG. Oh, he goes to sleep. I can't wait to BM players with this. I'm just gonna kill you and then go to sleep.
It's like 1v1 me in lane, and then just like
he sleep.
It's nap time.
He sleep. Just out. Love that you can move with this Cupid. Pretty cool. Kumba, of course, the second part of the gruesome twosome. Not quite D Generation X, but certainly just as scary. Let's see what Kumba. Well, this is what he looks like on the card. What does he sound like with those glasses?
Jeez, the space under people's beds are so messy nowadays. I can hardly fit under there.
The big boy.
Ready? Okay. What do you do when 10 monsters are at your front door? Hope it's Halloween! 10 monsters at the door!
So he is very much the counterpart to Cupid. He is a lot more lighthearted, and I absolutely love the textures on the skin. It's very cartoony, very pastel.
Yeah, I was talking about this off air when we were talking about the Nike skin. The texture looks soft. I don't know how to, like, it looks like it's pajamas, and that's something, you know, when we look at how far our animation department and our artists have come, it's those finer details, and I think I see that here on the Kumba as well. Kind of just this soft look to it makes it look like a monster or a toy or just something like kind of fun. I am going to focus on the weapon. I absolutely love this. This is some old school nature druidy, like it looks like something, you know, I would see on like a druid, but again, it's got this like fun. You compare this to the Scotty Ranger skin, and there's clearly like a childlike component to it.
Definitely.
Another VXG for the big boy, and he too.
Oh, they're both
sleep.
Both him and Cupid. That duo lane is lazy.
I love that. Just kind of chilling out there. Shout outs to that. It's actually what it looks like when me and Taco go hang out. She's the Cupid and I'm the Kumba, so it all works out. Fun stuff there. That, of course, is just some changes to our characters already in the game. And the biggest thing I want to mention is it's the community celebration.
Definitely.
The more games you play, the more access to these skins we'll be able to get out there. So tell all your friends. Shout out to Take Back Sunday. Coming up next, some new additions. We've got Persephone, and she's going to be showing up. That's why we're all dressed to the nines.
Exactly.
I'll toss it over to Aggro and the crew to talk about the new goddess.
Every season has its ending. The leaves fall from the trees. Once more, I descend to my husband's kingdom. The gods claim it is a place of shadows and sadness. But what do the gods know of death? What do they know of me? They never wondered why I ate the pomegranate seed. But I had my reasons.
One of the most requested gods or goddesses we've had over the many, many years of working here. I know I hear about Persephone all the time, and I'm so excited to finally get a chance to show it off to you guys. Still joined by AJ and Chris, but now we got Pon joining us here. Guys, we're all dressed up because that's what Persephone wanted. And I get the feeling that Persephone gets what she wants an awful lot. You know?
You can say that, I guess. I don't know.
She seems like a commanding presence.
Yeah, she does.
Interesting personality, right?
Yeah,
How would you describe it?
I don't know. I say her personality is definitely the she knows what she wants, and when she has her mind set to it, she can go right after it.
So the lore video there teases a little bit about her, some of her background, but for those who aren't quite as inundated in that part of the realm, Pon, why don't you kind of give us a quick breakdown?
Yeah, so her overall lore is that she is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, and they had a lot of time just telling her what she was going to do. Demeter was like, you're going to help me with my mysteries, and Zeus felt it was appropriate for him to give Persephone away without talking to her at all.
No.
And so she went to the Underworld. Hades took her to the Underworld, and the seasons ended up causing to be existed because Demeter was sad. She controlled the seasons. The world started dying, and Zeus was like, no, you have to bring her back. And so Hades offered her a choice of a pomegranate seed. And Persephone understood what that meant, that if she ate the pomegranate seed, she'd be choosing to stay with Hades rather than returning to the overworld for essentially forever. And so she took destiny into her own hands, ate the pomegranate seed, and they actually had probably the most successful relationship in Greek pantheon. Hades ended up taking on aspects of her, becoming a more Harvest character, especially when she was in the Underworld. And when she's in the Underworld, she is the queen of the Underworld. She actually is able to, she has dominion over mortal souls. She's the one that kind of guides them through the Underworld. She has her own domain in the Underworld, and they ended up taking on aspects of each other. And now they're kind of working together to their own ends.
Okay, so Persephone, I mean, Hades has been kind of a mainstay in the Smite story for a while now. He's a big part of Ragnarok and all that when it happens in game. Now Oleron has kind of risen to be the light side. Is Persephone kind of his anti-hero on the other side?
We're going to be exploring Persephone and Hades, their backstory and their complexities as gods, and their motivations a lot more in the upcoming Smite storyline and our future events, specifically the Odyssey.
Okay.
So little spoilers, as the Odyssey will be focusing on Persephone a lot.
Okay.
And we're already finishing up the first chapter of that story, and it is really awesome. And you get a really in-depth view about the complexities that go on with those characters that appear evil because they're gods and goddesses of death, but they have very different motivations than the gods of Olympus. And the key distinction there is that Persephone doesn't like how controlling and selfish those gods of Olympus are. They are ultimately self-serving, even though they appear benevolent. Persephone wants humanity to have more freedom. As someone who ruler of mortal souls in the Underworld, she is the one who she experiences human death every day.
Sure.
And it's impacted her heavily, and her and Hades understand this, and they see that all of the plight that humanity goes through. So Persephone is going to be trying to shake up the Olympian gods and prevent them from being so rigid. And she's going to do this through some interesting ways, and it's going to be a good bit of our upcoming story. It's going to be a long narrative, I guess I'd say.
Okay, fair enough. I'm excited to see some of that, but I'm also excited to see Persephone in game. We've been doing this a little bit more recently, where we get a chance to have whoever's back there, I believe it's Clumsy today, kind of give us the quick run through of the kit, show us what she's capable of, and then we'll go down and break it down step by step. So Clumsy, have at it, have some fun.
The Underworld opens. Drag them into the depths.
That's a lot. There's a lot happening on my screen right now.
There's a lot going on, and if you don't know exactly what's happening, it might be hard to follow, but we'll dive right into that.
Yeah, that's what the breakdown is for. But let's kind of stay zoomed out a little bit here for Pon for a second. What is the overall idea? What is Persephone designed to do? How is she going to really make her kit work?
So we wanted to highlight this combination of life and death and create a kind of necromancer-like character that isn't just about bringing up skeletons and spooky like bone creatures. We wanted her to actually feel like, what is her life-giving power and her nature powers? What if they are fused with underworld powers? And so her kit revolves around this interplay between life and death, and her ability to create these constructs of plant and skeleton using souls in the underworld that are willing to help her. And her whole gameplay revolves around creating this kind of field of plants that she calls her garden, and then using all her abilities to either plant more things or grow them rapidly for a lot of damage, a lot of just immediate flourishing of life.
Okay, so the first thing I'm noticing is that we got a big passive icon here.
Yes.
The pomegranate, and it looks like it's filling up with seeds. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Correct. So her passive is pomegranate seeds. And this is whenever she has a plant, so you see a plant was placed there, auto attacked it to activate it. That's how you activate those plants in one way. And when those are activated, you get a seed that flies to you. You can store up to 100 of them, and you might notice that the first one's really big and the 3 other ones are kind of small. It's because that first one is really important. Once you get 25 seeds, when you would die, you instead use those seeds to keep yourself alive for 8 seconds. So you will actually stay fighting for 8 seconds, unable to be killed, unable to be stopped, unable to be CC'd. You do 50% reduced damage, but if someone kills you and you want to try and get the finishing blow, you have a garden that you haven't been able to activate, you get to do all that stuff for 8 seconds, assuming you have actually farmed the seeds to do so.
So you got to be tending to your garden properly.
Yep, and you can see the six there is showing how many ammo she has of her 2, which is her main ability to plant plants. And then the other pomegranates that are on the side, she can accumulate up to 100. So 25 lets her recover and come back to life.
Okay.
Any excess that she generates over the course of playing, when she backs to the base, she actually gets to sell them for gold. So if you're doing this really well, you actually get a little bit of gold generation as well.
Wow. Okay, so 25 is the baseline that you basically need to be hitting if you want to use the kit to its full extent. If you're able to stay out a little bit longer, keep your seed generation going, how much are we selling each of these seeds for?
3 per seed.
Okay, and you can get up to how many? 100?
100. So 75 will get sold because it always keeps 25, so you can use your revive passive.
Cool.
But it will sell any excess past that.
So if you don't like having downtime ever in Smite, this might be the goddess for you. You're going to be busy on this, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. This passive, I'm really happy with how it's designed because the after death type of mechanic is something that's been requested in the community for a really long time in Smite. It's something we've always wanted to explore, but we don't like an idea of an ability that does nothing until you die.
Right.
Because if you're playing well, then you get nothing out of it. You're playing a 4 ability god instead of 5,
yeah.
which is not fun. So this whole farming mechanic ties in really well to give Persephone a clear design goal and give her structured rewards at different levels of how well you execute it. So if you're not making enough seeds at all, you go back to base with below 25. It doesn't sell any, right? You have to have excess, right, Pon?
Correct.
So if you just have 20, nothing's happening. When you get to 25, you can trigger the after death passive, and then if you continue farming, you get that really good feeling like when you're playing a different type of game that has mechanics like this, and you go cash in all of your crops at the end of the day, or in a mobile game in other ways, and then you just get the gold cha-ching, 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 cha-ching feeling.
Okay.
Which is what we're trying to give with Persephone
she just got
here.
3 gold right there. Excellent. Okay, let's look at ability 1 then, because that passive has a lot of components to it, but I think it'll probably feel very natural when you're using it. Her ability 1 is called Bone Rush. So what do we got here, Pon?
So this is her bringing in the Underworld to directly assist her. She actually will call forth a skeletal warrior of the Underworld, and this warrior will charge forward without abandon to target anyone in front of Persephone, and charges forward with such force that you're just kind of seeing like the cartoon where the skeleton hits a wall and it kind of explodes as pile of bones and the bones go flying.
Right.
That's what it does, and so it'll damage anyone past the area it runs, when it'll stop on the first target hit. So you can see there it stopped immediately, and then the pile of bones went flying past, and that damaged anyone behind the target.
Okay.
Additionally, the plant that she places with her 2 starts out as a skull, and the skeletal warrior has a skull, and so when it hits and all the bones go flying, the head actually goes flying to the end of it and also creates a plant. So not only can you create plants with your 2,
cool.
you can also use your 1 to start placing especially really far out and aggressive plants.
Okay, so this is kind of your longer range planting.
Yes, correct.
And to her core ranged poke, or I guess not necessarily her main wave clear, because her plants can do that too, but we'll get more into detail on that on ability 2.
It's pretty fast. I mean, it's got there's travel time for the skeleton, but it looks like the explosion afterwards is pretty quick and pretty long.
I believe that explosion is instant.
Yes, it is.
It is.
But the travel time is there and the deploy time is there. And notice that Persephone, we spared no expense on her visual representation. This is a full-on character we're using for this ability.
Yes, yeah, a whole new friend basically to add in.
And you can see wherever she summons it, that's where it starts summoning from. So you have to take a little bit of different consideration from other abilities, where if you're side strafing and cast it, it'll cast from where where you were when you cast it, not where you currently are.
I see. Okay.
Gives this ability a really nice feel in game. Although it might look like a simple line attack, it has a very unique feel to it than other abilities in the game. And that ability kind of start it warming up and then let it charge forward allows you to do some really interesting plays where you're moving quickly and you aim at something, but you can continue on your way. You don't have to keep your camera locked on your target the whole time, which is nice.
I like that a lot. All right, number 2, her second ability, Harvest. We've seen Clumsy use this a decent amount to place the skulls, but I'm guessing that's not all it does.
It does a lot of things. So Harvest is the main way that you place your plants out. You have 6 charges in a given time, and you can have 10 plants out maximum. And when you first place it, it's a skull on the ground, and you activate it with basic attacks. You activate all your plants with basic attacks. So you throw out the plant, you auto-attack it, and a skull goes flying to you, and that'll actually heal you. So if you just need quick sustain, you can drop a plant in front of you and use it to sustain yourself. If you place it and let it sit there for 4 seconds, a sprout will erupt through the skull, showing that it's now in a different state. And in this situation, when you attack it, it'll explode into like a kind of like spore cloud, and any enemy that's caught in it will take damage and be slowed. So this is kind of the middle stage where you've placed a plant, you've waited a little bit, and now you can auto-attack it to get an explosion to occur in that area. If you wait 24 seconds, so a significant amount of time investment, you can see that one over there has actually gotten some legs, is now able to move around, and when it's attacked, it'll become alive and chase down any nearby god or minion, prioritizing gods first, and run at them and then bite them.
And make a really creepy sound.
What in the world just happened?
Yeah,
that's scary.
This ability has a lot of moving parts. Sometimes you want the exploding plant, sometimes you just want some sustain, sometimes you want to amass a giant garden of chasing plants and run them at opponents. They are only alive for 3 seconds when they are chasing, so players can run away from them to avoid them. There is a delay on when they bite, so you can try and juke the bite as well, so there are counterplay options to it. But when you have an army of these plants running at you, it's a pretty spooky experience.
Run away, yeah. Okay, so you can juke it if you give it a little wiggle right at the end, it looked like.
Specifically, once it starts firing, it's locked on to an area.
Gotcha.
And you can path yourself out of that area.
So can enemies kill these plants or skulls?
Nope. So one thing that we wanted to make sure of Persephone was she was creating her garden, and she had agency to play around it as best as she could. And so we wanted to give counterplay to gods when they're activated and where they can stand, rather than giving counterplay in regards to them being able to maybe kill the plants. So these plants are out there, and there is no way to kill them or destroy them. This is Persephone's garden. You are not going to mess with it.
Pon, I hope you take this as the compliment it's intended as. I love and hate all of your gods because they make me think too hard. I've got too much going on in my brain, man. I don't have enough brain power to farm and keep my plants where I want them on the right stages.
You are fully capable of playing this goddess.
You guys, I'm gonna try. That's for sure.
We did design it in a way that there was growing levels of complexity, but that it wasn't necessarily mandatory.
Yeah. Her skill floor should be relatively straightforward. As we go through the rest of the kit, you'll see that there's combinations that you can do to make this, to get a good amount of execution out of it. But if you're a top level player and you want to maximize this to its full potential, there is a high skill ceiling there.
And can we just talk a minute about the art going on here during this ability? Chris, what was the thought process for Persephone's effect scheme, and then how did you handle it on this ability?
Yeah, so it started off as like a really magical look, but kind of as we went through development, we decided that we also wanted to throw in a lot more elements, like natural elements to it. So it was kind of hard to keep a balance of like magical and physical kind of thing. So I noticed if you throw out her in hands, you'll notice that they're like vines that kind of creep through the ground instead of just being like a straight magical protection or projectile. And same with these plants, we still want we want it to look like a kind of like a spore explosion. If you blow them up, you'll notice like a flower and a skull pops out, which is all very magical, but there's still like physical elements tying it all together. So it's kind of difficult, but I think it turned out pretty nicely. It fits her character pretty well.
It looks great, and I think the idea to put these on the ground traveling basic attacks because they're popping the seeds up out of the ground works. Super
and
well.
just Persephone is, we knew far in advance with Persephone, we wanted her to have supporting characters as a kind of necromancer or multi-management character. We knew we were gonna have other supporting characters, so that's where we have the skeletal charging minion as well as the creepy flower creature. that is featured prominently in her card art, which looks awesome. And then all of its intermediate forms. So a lot of additional artwork went into this goddess.
Yeah,
and
big shout out to the team.
Right.
The entire art pipeline, modeling, concept, rigging, tech art, animation. When you have a character that has this many supplemental models, it is definitely a big task. And I mean, just look how cool all these plants are.
And I love her little like hop. She's like having a good time, you know? She's like planting something. She looks like, you know, a little like Snow White, like plant in here, plant in there, but it's actually like necromancer plants coming at you.
You've exactly nailed it there, Aggro. And if you've read my blog post, you'll see the kind of duality in these themes. She is a regal, powerful supervillain, but she's also young and anti-establishment and a little bit of, honestly, like a hippie feel to her.
Okay.
And that is very intentional in both her voice acting, her overall theme, and her participation in the Smite storyline, and her animation. And we're going to see that especially featured here in her next ability.
That is Flourish, her third ability. This is the movement that we saw a little bit earlier on. You mentioned this in your blog post, and this might be one of those the more cinematic moves, it feels like, just based on the look alone.
So Flourish is a two-way leap, which is kind of new that we're doing. It's either, if you're going forward, you'll leap forwards a set distance, or if you're going backwards, you'll leap backwards a set distance. And it's a leap ability that does something where you take off, not where you land. So she actually kind of explodes life-giving energy underneath her, and that propels her forward or backwards. And that life-giving energy, if there are plants around, not only do they immediately activate, so this is your way of triggering a whole bunch of plants very quickly,
that's cool.
They also upgrade. So if you have a few of your kind of sprouted plants out, and you do the flourish on them, so you can see there, some of them are skulls, some of them
he's
are...
going all in.
Yep. You saw 2 explosions and 4 biting plants. So if there's a big garden, if you've made a big garden, here's your way to quickly activate it and get the most out of it.
Okay, so you don't need to even wait for that 24 seconds or anything like that. You just have to use a movement ability, which is a high investment, but it seems like a big payoff.
Yeah, this is a nice way for you, especially if you're in a situation where you didn't necessarily get the kind of maximum garden that you want to pre-plan somewhere. You have abilities to actually get some immediate benefit. And not only that, when she uses her Flourish ability, she actually pre-germinates her next goal. So when you place it, it's immediately in its tier 2 stage. So you can do things like backwards leap because the jungler came to gank you, throw out your plant, which is now an exploding plant that slows, and immediately basic attack it.
Holy, that's so cool.
Yes.
This ability is sweet.
Very interconnected kit.
Yes.
This ability also has some other interesting features along with it. It allows Persephone to leap through walls, over walls with this ability.
Oh,
when
that's good.
Similar abilities in the game do not. We've redesigned Persephone's to allow that. But as you see with that little targeting reticle out front, you need to make sure you have the fully cleared distance, or you won't make it over a wall. And she can also leap through walls backwards,
that is
which
really
has never
cool.
been done before.
Oh man, I'm gonna like blink in, plant something, then whoop, just right out.
But if you make the mistake, you will just faceplant into the wall you're standing right next to, and then get immediately murdered by a pile of gods.
Be careful, that has happened. As you just saw there, he thought he was going to be able to get over that wall, and he didn't quite get there, so you gotta be careful.
Back jumping over walls it can be a risky play, so be careful with it.
That
also,
is so
sometimes when we
cool.
spam things on cooldown, we might get some interesting plays here. But you see here a very light, floaty animation treatment to go forward with those themes that we were talking about before, and the detonation area being at the origin point as opposed to the destination point. That was mostly designed to discourage people from jumping into a pile of plants and enemies.
Right.
However powerful that could have been, that would have been extremely high risk, high reward type of gameplay, mostly just resulting in Persephone getting killed.
Yep.
Not what we wanted.
No.
And I want to make a note of the effects here too, is a lot of her abilities have kind of like this deep red and darkness to it. And that area that she's creating is actually pretty lively and like full of life. And so you get a lot more of her nature aspects there. I don't know if you want to talk more about how we decided to do that kind of style for her.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the pitch for her, you know, we had this duality for the god that we wanted to make, but we didn't want to have like a hell situation where it was like 2 different gods essentially. So Pon kind of designed all of the abilities to have like either like a life element or like an undeath element to them, and then like some combine the 2. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
That's what we were going for. No, lots of times when you talk about life and death as a theme, people think about it alternatingly.
Yeah. Right.
Life or death. You don't really show both at once. And we were like, nah.
Give me some
We
of that.
want something more unique and something more interesting. We're going to do life and death. So we tried to really design all of her abilities and all of her feel around combining life and death into a single visual theme at a single time, not alternating back and forth, not half and half, but life that brings death, or death springing from life, all at once. It was not an easy theme to. The kind of the point of the whole blog post. There's a lot of in between themes. She's this but that, this but not this but that, but somewhere in between. These alternate combinations. It's a difficult theme to work with, and she was really challenged for the design team and the art team. But we're really happy with what we're seeing so far.
All right, so let's move on to the ultimate. We got a chance to see it in the little preview, and it looks sweet. Grasp of Death. Your blog post mentioned this was 2 new types of CC.
Yep, that is true.
What do we got here, fellas?
So when this is going to be a ability where she throws it out and she conjures essentially life in her hands, a ball of vines, and throws it forward. And this ball of vines will actually entrap and encase, and entrap is the new CC, and encase the person that it hits inside this cage of vines. And you can see if you walk forward, it actually has like a health bar for pips where it can break if it's attacked.
Okay.
But that person inside is rooted, they're crippled, and they have their attack speed slowed. So the only way for them to get out of this ability is either beating to remove the effect, or actually like auto-attacking their way out of this thing. Not only that, the vines are not done once they've hit their target. They seek enemies. They are not content with just the person they've trapped. And so vines will actually reach out to grab the person that's around. And when they're grabbed, they can no longer move further away. So you can see that Chalk's trying to run away, but no, he's tethered to that person. And if he moves closer, it'll actually reel him in. Like if he ever moves closer, he cannot move much further around that.
Holy.
So 2 new types of CC, Entrapped and Bind.
I'm gonna really like setting my jungler up for double Thor dunks and huge Humbat ults and that kind of stuff.
We played a T5 Cuckoo game, and this was pretty good with a tornado and ult.
Yeah, that seems not bad.
It's one of the longest duration CCs in the game, but that's designed because it has counterplay in mind. And even the bind, the allies, it's all designed to encourage your allies to break you out.
Yeah.
Because when you break the person out, you also break yourself out.
Hold on.
And not only that,
hold on.
The vines don't care if they're hitting a god. It's fine if they hit a wall. It creates the deployable there instead of the god.
You can bind them to the wall. That's so cool. Yeah, we're doing this Gold Fury. Stay over there, chumps. That is so sweet.
And if they walk in afterwards, it's not just on initial cast. If they walk in afterwards, the vines will reach out to them. If they leave, the vines will retract if it didn't quite get them. So it has a very lifelike quality to it. If you see the Chalk walks in here, and now it reaches out for him and grabs him.
Oh, wait, no, I've messed up. That is incredible. Okay, so if you get hit by the ultimate and you use beads, you get released.
Yeah, you were able to walk out of the cage.
Okay, does the person who is tethered to the cage...
They're still in there.
They have to beads as well.
They have to wait, or they have to beads, they have to wait the duration, or they have to break the entrapping vines.
Okay, but if you're trapped, you can auto-attack this thing on the wall here.
So you can see Chalk's hitting it, trying to break it. Didn't quite break it fast enough, got the full effect off.
Gotcha. And as you mentioned, whoever's trapped in there has their attack speed slowed, right? So
Correct.
It's even harder for that person to do it alone.
Yep, they can still cast abilities, so like they can push people away. They can fight back. But they are crippled while inside of it, so they can't leap out of it. And so you definitely need some people to help you break out of this more quickly. And so if a whole team gets trapped, everyone better turn to kill that thing because it's in everyone's best interest.
Can we get this ultimate fired from an enemy Persephone's perspective, please?
Oh, yeah.
Production team, because this projectile looks insane.
Yeah,
and
it looks
you
pretty
only get to
crazy.
see part of that awesomeness from Persephone's perspective. It's really the other enemy that when this thing is flying towards you, that's when you really start to feel the terror that we wanted you to feel in this ability.
Yeah.
Spooky.
The sound alone is like it's kind of scary as it's coming at you for sure. It
We
seems
were
like they're
playing with
working
the
on it.
concepts of, grasping vines. This is a sort of common horror and plant mage type of theme. So this felt
what up,
really natural
Persephone?
to her. And we wanted to make sure this was really scary.
Holy, that is horrifying. Whoa, you guys did not warn me about that giant skull coming at me.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's what we're talking about.
They
It
were
looks
like-
amazing.
They're like, yeah, we can just make the cage into a projectile. She throws a cage. I was like, but what makes it scary is just like a giant skull on front of the projectile. And, turned out nice.
Oh, also a thing that's highlighted there is it has global range.
Has no max range.
It will go. It'll go until it hits a wall. So you can see that one, I think, is going to hit like the Phoenix wall.
That was a perfect shot. Oh my god.
What in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it has an effect when it hits wall, so it's okay if it keeps going until it hits a wall.
No, it's not okay.
It doesn't go through walls.
It doesn't go through walls.
Walking into base and just get clotheslined by
You're
this
gonna see a
ultimate.
giant, scary skull with like these tendrils coming at you.
That would kind of be a waste of the ability, though, unless
Would
they
it be?
managed to
For
get.
the
Or the
sheer
most-
psychological damage I'm inflicting.
guess
No,
not.
that's a top front page Reddit.
Oh, whoa! Audio is way louder. That was well done, production team.
We just
though. That was
jump
awesome.
scared some people.
Wow.
Me? I'm gonna love doing that. I'm gonna try.
And notice
this
how
is where I'm gonna
the cage has those skull elements built into it as well. Life and death all seen together at once in glorious, evil, clever harmony.
The whole art team just killed it.
Modeling in
incredible.
particular with 3 like deployables, that's a lot of work for them to do.
Yeah.
They did
Yeah.
awesome.
It really did.
This god is just specifically more work than a usual god. Like,
Yeah, because you're trying to scar people for life with this ultimate.
she's not that scary. She's got good motivations. Come on.
Yeah, I guess.
You're a human. She'd be cool to you.
Oh man, that was sweet. All right, let's take a listen. We got the voice pack, of course, that we have to listen to for Persephone. Let's take a listen. Oh, jeez.
Be thankful. From your corpse, I will create something beautiful. The only use for you is to nourish the soil. Attack! Defend!
Oh, those
I
animations are
appreciate
great.
Hades. He doesn't take me for pomegranate.
Oh,
Nice.
Oof, the puns.
I'll give you one chance to surrender. Take it or leave it.
Classic. What about her
Not
recall?
bad. We are going to show you guys the death passive in just a minute, but they got to get it working basically so you can get a chance to see how it works.
Yeah, you can't be, so for production, you can't be in God mode, and you have to actually do hit me with more than your health amount, because you have to die normally. If you just do the command to normally kill your character, it won't work.
All right, so there it is. You get picked up by the skeleton, and so she does less damage in this mode.
50% damage.
But
Can
she-
do everything else.
Yep, you can use all your abilities,
including your ult.
including your ult.
Okay, and you are did you say you're CC immune?
You can't be interacted with.
She's untargetable.
Yeah, so you can't take damage, you can't be CC'd, you
She
can't
doesn't
be
body
hit.
block either. She can't.
Yep.
So she can't just be like an infinite hunter wall of blocking volume or anything like that.
Okay.
She can't just body block you inside tower range, right?
Correct.
Anyone can pass through her.
That is too cool, man.
It's also important that worth learning. We're working on it right now, but when she goes live, she will, in theory, have a material swap on her that makes her more ghostly and glow, so it's more apparent that she is in her resurrected state and not just.
Excellent.
Yep, there are a few small features that are coming in that you'll see over the course of PTS and before live. Our live, that's one of them.
Excellent. Okay, we got to take a look at these recolor. Oh, this recolor, I should say, of course. Her recolor, a little bit more red.
No, that's the base.
Oh, that's the base. I'm sorry. I was
That's
like, wow,
not the right card art.
I was like,
That's the base card art.
I was like,
it's,
which is
it's
dope.
fantastic.
The
The recolor card art is really cool though, and it gives you a little bit more.
There you
Yeah,
go.
the more
wow.
interesting emotion that she shows
Yeah.
in this kind of. She's not just a straight up bland supervillain. She has a lot more interesting motives, and that's why you get this really clever grin here along with her power.
How'd you guys know my favorite color was green? Really appreciate it. I like this one. I'm going to be using this one quite a bit.
We figured people who preferred a plant goddess would like green, so.
Yeah, fair enough.
This
That is
almost
really
shows
cool.
more of her springtime outfit versus her fall-winter outfit.
Okay, yeah, you're seeing both ends of the wardrobe there.
You're a
That-
caster, you gotta dress up, you understand some basic fashion principles of fall colors and spring
Very
colors.
basic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I just ask Tom most of the time, to be honest.
Me
with
too,
you.
but yeah.
That's the way we do it.
We have a
around here.
professional art team that understands those very well.
Yes.
And this recolor turned out awesome.
It really did. That is sweet. You get to both ends of the spectrum. Persephone looks great. Of course, PTS will be up shortly.
Yes.
We hope that, so just stay tuned to all of our social medias and that kind of stuff. Smite Pro on Twitter is
We
the
do
place
want to
or
call
Smite Game,
attention
rather.
to that her mastery skins will not be launching in her update.
Okay.
They will be launched next update.
Okay.
So We'll probably still get bug reports for those being missing, but that is intentional that those are missing on PTS. Those are not being implemented yet. They're still being finished up. This goddess has so much going on that we want to take the extra time, make sure those look good.
Yeah, I don't think delaying the goddess for the mastery skins is the right call. You know
we did the same thing with Horus and Set. We shipped their masteries afterwards, and that's okay. And we used to do that a lot anyway.
Yeah, that's how it used to
Gives people another bump of progression, because some people play the god like crazy, but then it's nice to, you play the god like crazy when it comes out, and then the next update, you get the mastery skins come out, and you go, ooh, okay, maybe I'll play a little more, and we like that too, because we like just keeping people to try the god multiple times.
Yeah, I like that sort of flow as well. Guys, thank you so much for joining us and showing off Persephone. She looks absolutely phenomenal. Again, at Smite Game on Twitter, so you can get all the updates on when PTS is going live and all that kind of stuff. Thanks so much for watching our update show where all of us dressed up and had a lot of fun. Make sure you stay tuned, though. Just 5 more minutes. We've got Esports Weekly coming up, so stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Welcome into Esports Weekly, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, especially if you just watched on Patch Notes. I'm Ryan Bailey. I'll be your host as per usual. And this is going to be a great show because the week 2 of the SPL is going to be one that is right back into the action. We got a full schedule ahead for Thursday and Friday. So you got to make sure you get all your information up to the date on what all these teams are doing right after all these mid-season patches in the MSI and the way that meta's changed and all that kind of stuff. Lots of great information coming here for Esports Weekly. Of course, we'll also go over what happened in the SCL at SML and what you can expect from them moving forward as well. But I want to start with what I was just kind of talking about, and that's that we just got 2 SPL games last week. We only saw Space Station get stomped twice, frankly, and we didn't really get a chance to see how much has really changed from the mid-season patch. What are the biggest differences? What changes in the meta are we going to see? Everyone's starting to do that Renegade start. We're even seeing it in the SCL and the SML, where support starts at speed, so rotates over to red. Is that the best start in the current meta? Usually the way that these pro teams start is the biggest differentiator when it comes to Worlds. How do we start the map? How do we abuse the map in the early game? And that's something that Renegades did best at MSI, and it's a big reason why they won it. So what's going to be the next sort of adjustment? There were lots of god changes and lots of item changes during the mid-season patch, but no map changes. So that just leaves these pro teams to just kind of fester and figure out what is the best with everything that they've been practicing with so far. As for those god and item changes, what are we going to see from some of these pro teams? We only got to see 3 teams and what they value. It was Space Station twice and then Splice and Dignitas. But what about teams like E United? What about teams like Rival or SK? We feel like we haven't seen SK play in quite some time because they didn't make it to MSI. What have they been working on under the hood during their downtime since the Midseason Invitational? I think that's going to be the biggest thing. We saw the pinnacle of play during the Midseason Invitational. It was Renegades and the way that they played the map in the early game, but also the way that they picked this on her in the mid lane, all of these sort of different strategies. Their builds were a little bit different a lot of the time. How well can these teams kind of take a look at what Renegades did, apply it to their own team, and then end up looking and seeing to the future? How do we integrate Pridewind into all of our builds as frontliners? Because you probably should at this point. Is it worth playing Hunters to play Failnaught? What weird mages or non-mages or non-hunters can we play in the long lane since we're getting all this farm? A lot on the table still as we move forward into week 2 for the SPL. And let's take a look at that schedule, or excuse me, the standings from Phase 1 into Phase 2. Remember, these all carry over. So Obey Alliance, formerly Trifecta, went 1-8 a little bit earlier on in the phase. Still 1-8 coming into Phase 2, but with a new look. They won't be playing this week, but not until next week for them. I believe week 3 is when we will see that Obey Alliance debut. I talked a little bit about week 1 and what happened there. Quick recap for you if you missed our first week of Phase 2. It was a little bit of a rough one for SSG. And this is kind of the... I feel like SSG got dealt kind of a bad hand. I mean, they had a tough Phase 1. They come into Phase 2 having not made any other changes outside of moving Andy to mid. Sino got picked up, but that happened in Phase 1. And they got to play 2 of the best teams in the league in Splice and Team Dignitas. And don't get me wrong, Space Station Gaming did not pass that test. But they looked pretty good in Game 1 against Dignitas. Is that something that SSG fans can hold on to? I don't know. I think it's time for us to accept that Space Station Gaming will not be a, top 5 team by the time the Worlds comes around. But do they have the potential to get hot and play well at that LAN, qualify to the Worlds, and then make some noise there? Maybe. It's not all over for Space Station fans just yet. Just don't be expecting first seed is the way that I would look at it. But you can expect some top 5 plays from some of your members. That's right, Barracuda is going to be on our top 5 plays this week, but not starting with him. In fact, we're going to go to the minor league to start with. Number 5, Genetics, has been playing well for a long time for Simplicity. They came to MSI, and you got a chance to see them. But I loved this play right here. He gets kind of all-in committed on. Don't crack in a Fafnir when his ultimate is up. That's a little bit of a tip for you guys. Immunes all of that damage coming from the Poseidon Kraken, and then a beautiful stun over the wall. Threads the needle for the second stun and gets the kill himself onto Angry. Impressive stuff there from Genetics. We come to expect that kind of stuff from him at this point, but that play definitely caught my eye. Number 4, we've got Dobson in the SCL. Had a nice play. He's back on Dabo's Disciples, and among his disciples, he has once again returned to being a true god. Finds a solo kill on the Tiger, knocks him back into his ultimate, and then gives the Ao Kuang a little bit of the 1-2 right here off the ricochet. Beautiful double kill for Dobson in the SCL this week. Number 3 is what I was talking about a little bit earlier on. Barracuda had a nice play on the Morrigan. No traditional hunters for Barra this week, it felt like. But this play nearly saved the game up against Thig. This was game 1. His patience, and then finds the double stun onto both Whirlwind and Ataraxia. The quick transform, he's looking all over the place, and he can't find either of the carries. They just got double killed off that transform. Nicely done there by the traditional hunter player, but in this sense, the mage player, I suppose. Number 2, Sino also gives us a little bit of a play here. He's been preaching the Golden Blade Arachne for quite some time, but I didn't think it was capable of this. Dignitas trying to get a Fire Giant going in their favor. Sino lands down, gets the 2-for-1 Whirlwind, and the Fire Giant, thank you very much. The only Golden Blade steal a Fire Giant I have seen. Certainly a pro level play, an impressive performance there from Sino on the Arachne. And then number 1, if you didn't watch on Tuesday, just yesterday, the SML, you missed Penitom going off on the set. I mean, this man did things that we really haven't seen. Not 1 multi-kill, not 2 multi-kills, but 3 multi-kills. And you might be saying, oh, a couple double kills. No. 1 triple kill, 2 quadra kills, including this one very early on. This game, not close at this point, I would say, but Penitom finds the quadra kill for himself, and that one leading to the full deicide, of course. This one a little bit later on. Hey, Set is pretty good, but he is real hard. If you're Penitom, you're not really worried about that hard part right after the fact. This one is a legitimate 1v4, basically, as he goes in and gets them all with that Kingslayer ultimate. Love watching Set play. One of my favorite characters to watch in the entire game right now. That was his 2nd quadra kill all in the same game. And then if that wasn't enough, he got a triple later on, which could have been another quadra, by the way. Penitom on pop-off alert, to say the least, up against Team Exilium earlier on this week. Make sure you're tuning in on Tuesdays, man, especially when Sanguine's playing. They are a lot of fun to watch, without a doubt whatsoever. As I mentioned, we've got a big show for you here today, a full schedule of SPL games that you got to make sure you're ready and tuned in for. So we'll be right back as we get prepared to break down this week's SPL. Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. We're going to kick off our talk for this week's big SPL schedule with E United, a team that made it to the Midseason Invitational but didn't exactly meet their mark when it comes to their performance on LAN. We got a chance to talk with Anatoly right now, of course, the correspondent for E United. Toli, how is this team feeling? Because I think that a lot of people would say that they overperformed in Phase 1. I think a lot of other people would say they underperformed in Phase 1. I think the general sentiment is we don't really know how good this team is yet.
I feel the cards weren't dealt in their favor, unfortunately, because they ended the split very well. They actually beat out Renegades in the regular split, but the problem was who they faced during MSI. It was Splice. They lost to Splice in the regular season at 0-3, and they couldn't find the victory at MSI, getting knocked out in that first round. They ended at 6-3 during the regulars Phase 1, so I think that was a good showing for them, even transitioning from Vedium into Emelito. A little bit of struggle to start off, but ended really hot with that Renegades win. Also, the second team rather to defeat Dignitas at the very end of it.
That's true. A lot of impressive wins on the resume for United, but then they have these moments where they just kind of look a little bit lost at times in some of these sets. How are they feeling as they prepare for Phase 2?
Well, they definitely felt that they were a top 2 team going into MSI, so they are a little disappointed at how they ended the first phase, but they have a lot of high hopes and preparations of like unique strategies going into the Phase 2. So they're feeling very confident despite that first round knockout from Splice. You can't be too mad to losing to Splice the way they were performing overall, despite losing to Renegade. So I think United not deterred from their losses.
I mean, I know that they're feeling pretty good overall because a lot of them just went on vacation to Hawaii. We saw a lot of their pictures on Twitter, so I'm sure they are refreshed and ready to go for Phase 2. I know you got a chance to talk to Big Man Tings a little bit earlier on. Tell me what he had to say.
Yeah, he was basically saying how he was the top 2 team. He felt that he was in the top 2 team category. It was him and Renegades battling back and forth and scrimming against each other. But once they ran into that brick wall against Splice, they couldn't really handle it.
Yeah, Splice was definitely pretty hot at the time for sure. I believe we have a quote from Big Man Tings as well on what he had to say regarding E United and their standing kind of going in towards these next phases. As he said, quote, MSI was not the best, prepping for Worlds though, which is the end game, end quote, when what their mentality is right now. And I think that makes some sense. I mean, yes, MSI, not exactly what they wanted, but it's really just there as a kind of benchmark overall through the halfway part. Worlds is the prize, for sure.
And they ended the first phase really well at 6-3. They were able to get a lot of good victories in the first phase, and even against their next opponent, they found the victory in that first phase.
So now their first opponent here this phase is SK Gaming, a team that I'd imagine is pretty hungry after missing MSI, who wanting to prove that they are a top-end contender. How do you think United matches up here?
Hard to say about how SK has been preparing, but in terms of the creativity from E United between Big Man Tings and also Ice Ice Baby, they have a diverse god pool, 13 different gods played from Big Man, 15 from Ice Ice within 35 games, 37 if you count those 2 forfeit losses, but we don't count those in this. So I think there's bigger chance for E United to find the victory, although with that first loss, it's about the question of their mentality going into it. Are they going to be held back of that first loss, or are they going to be revigorated and motivated to find the victory today?
If you had to give me one player that's going to be the key to E United's success in the second phase, who would it be?
Has to be Big Man overall. He's like kind of the glue that holds the whole team together.
Big Man Tings has definitely been doing big man things in the mid lane, but has to continue in Phase 2 if United is going to be the top 2 team they believe themselves to be. Totally, thank you very much for joining us and talking E United. We're going to go over SK Gaming and their first game back in Phase 2 right on the other side. Welcome back to Esports Weekly. SK Gaming is a team that I think a lot of us expected to see at the Midseason Invitational, but unfortunately did not. Their first game back in action will be this week, and to go over it, we've got Tom Badger, the SK Gaming correspondent, joining us here on Esports Weekly. Tom, it's been a bit since we've talked SK Gaming.
A little bit.
How are they doing? They doing okay?
Honestly, really good, man. SK are really comfortable right now. You know, this is a team that all of them individually, don't forget, sure, they're the same squad from last year, but they've all had storied SPL careers independent. And a lot of them outside of Zapman have kind of struggled to find success. And this is the first time where I think a lot of these players are on a team where you can certainly see what the future looks like, and comfort is really, you know, I work with SSG. It's a much different type of atmosphere.
Yeah, this SK Gaming, I think, has a lot of confidence, despite maybe where they are in the standings. I feel like they understand that they are playing the long game. Just like we were talking about with the United a minute ago, Worlds is the ultimate goal for this team.
Without a doubt. You know, it's funny. I caught up with Sam earlier, I caught up with Neil Ma, and I said, "Yo, what's good, man? What are you thinking about for Phase 2?" And he was like, "Dubs only."
In a mood, huh?
Yeah, and I was like, okay. And he was like, "Do you want a real answer?" I was like, "Yeah." And he went, "Dubs." Oh, okay, I got one for you. And he said, "Look, man, you know, I don't." He said, "Quote, I don't care about world seeding." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Look, man, obviously we want to auto qualify, but if we don't, oh well. I have faith in my team. We're really damn good. We get better every time we go out there. And if you're talking to me, I ain't heard a lie yet. So I look at what he's saying. I'm like, word. This is a very comfortable team that's comfortable with who they are, and like that's really telling. When you can be like, we missed MSI. We know we're going to be better for Worlds. We're going to take it one game at a time. Is the cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, man.
Works out for a lot of teams. We hear Aurora say it all the time for Splice. Zapman is someone that I don't think I really got enough credit for how he played in phase 1. He soloed just about everyone he played against in the first phase. I mean, how can you not be confident in the way that he's been playing?
It's been fantastic, and if this is my platform to be the Zap fan, I mean,
so to speak,
what's up, man? Again, I mentioned it on patch notes just earlier. Some of the newer fans might not remember when I was just a community member, and I got into Smite because of Zapman, Lazes, Anatoly, and that Dignitas team. And it's been a long time since we've seen that Zapman. A long time. And this season, he's brought it back, man. We're seeing the aggressive Zapman. He's holding W. He's smashing your face. He's soloing you. He's soloing your teammate. He's soloing your teammate's best friend. He might die once, twice, chicken soup with rice. He might dive your Phoenix. He might be in the Titan room before a tier 1 tower goes down, but he's winning the games. And like I said, I mean, that's what I tune in for. I like X's and O's and deep strategy like anybody else.
Sure.
Show me some fireworks, baby. And that's what we're getting.
Zapman definitely won to provide the match, so to speak, for those fireworks. Their match, though, of week 1 is up against E United. Totally was just saying that E United feels like they're a top team in the entire SPL. E United did make it to MSI, but didn't have their best showing there. Where do you think that SK can really make their headroom in this matchup?
I shout out to Max. I think this is all the way up. Max headroom. This is where SK start to solidify themselves and become a strong contender. I don't want to say a strong team because I do think that they've been a strong team and will continue to be so. But I think this is where SK Gaming, that comfort level that I talked about, that Neil kind of showed me, that's where this comes into play. They go up against E United or they go up against, Trifecta or the bottom of the league, and they're going to play their game. They're going to do what they're good at. And they're going to, in my eyes, succeed. I think this is a team that has internalized their game plan. Aggro, we sit up here a lot and backstage a lot and say, what's this team's problem? What's that team's problem? And a lot of the times we come down to they don't know what their game plan is. They don't know what their identity is. What is X team's approach? And if we have to scratch our head, we usually have to look towards the bottom of the standings. SK Gaming has never once made me curious as to what their game plan is, what they identify as, or how they plan to win. And I think that consistency and strategy and mindset is what allows you to win in a long marathon type season like we have.
Well, let's see if they can do it at the beginning of phase 2, and they've got a United up first. Here are caster predictions, and a lot of them leaning the way of SK Gaming. Hindu, the lone man, predicting E United, at least on the screen.
I think he just selected EU.
Yeah, that happens from time to time. Where do you lean on this matchup? Do you think SK is going to pull it out?
Absolutely, SK, and it's fun to come up here and obviously we lean on our teams, but my unbiased opinion is SK.
Okay.
I really and truly think this team has what it takes. Not just everything that I said about the approach to the game, but also this is a damn good team. They got the talent.
Without a doubt. They've also got a second matchup though this week against Obey, the former Trifecta roster. This Obey team did make some changes, getting Mineral instead of Ionic. Do you think that this is SK one of those teams that's susceptible to overlooking their opponents?
No, not at all, and that's a big part of what I think their identity is. Again, going towards, I'm going to go back to that exact quote that Neil showed us, where he says, look, I don't care about world seeding. I think that it's the same way where we approach every game the same. We don't care if we're playing Season 3 Epsilon or if we're playing Fun Ball last year, or shout out to Thirst. They're going to bring the same game every time, and that's why I'm so confident in this SK group.
Yeah, there aren't many duo lanes that like to farm you and embarrass you more than Zap and Neil do, so that's something to watch out for anytime you're going up against that Obey or that SK Gaming squad.
Absolutely.
I should say. Tom, thank you very much for joining us and talking SK Gaming. On the other side, we're going to go over Team Rival after their disappointment at MSI. Stay tuned to Esports Weekly. Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. Normally, John Finch is Team Rivals correspondent, but because John recently watched the beginning of Finding Nemo once more and felt so bad for all those poor clownfish that he went to a clownfish sanctuary to help out, we've got Anatoly subbing in to talk Team Rival. Toly, look, that was a tough MSI for Team Rival.
It really was.
To lose to Armada, despite having all their talent, it's a minor league team that we know didn't get that much practice coming in. How is Rival able to bounce back when it comes to Phase 2?
Honestly, I think they'll still be fine for Phase 2, but let's talk about their MSI performance, because losing to Armada at 0-2, they got bamboozled. Meerkat running it down mid with a double chalice, the blink pressure onto Panda Cat was completely unexpected. I think the problem for Rival in MSI was the fact that they weren't really challenged enough during the regular split. They ended at 8-1 with a plus 19 overall game record. And after their first loss from Dignitas, they didn't lose after that set. They only dropped 4 entire games throughout their next 8 sets, so they needed to be challenged a little bit more. And this team has a lot of creativity. Every single player has at least anywhere between 10 to 15 different gods played throughout their 33 games, and you just got to wonder, like, what really happened to them when they faced off against Armada, because it didn't look like the same Rival in Phase number 1 at all.
Yeah, I mean, they had so many things going for them. I think to highlight that they lost week 1 and then never again during the regular season is a really good point. I think you kind of need to go through some of that adversity a lot of the time as a top team to understand where you are. You hear Dignitas talk about it, where they were glad that they didn't go in undefeated. It didn't end up making the difference for them necessarily, but I do think you learn a lot about yourselves as a team when you take losses like that.
And this is a team that has a lot of synergy together. They're double block scrims every single day. They're able to do stuff outside of the house as well, working out together at the gym. And I think that individually their talent is all across the board. Final K, number 2 KDA overall. Arco tied for number 3 at First Bloods. PBM, number 2 assist in the Guardian position. And Captain Twig, also that facilitator at number 1 jungle assists.
Wow, so you know that this team is working together well as a unit. And I think you got to get back to that, right? If they're going to return to form and be a top team in the SPL once again. Don't forget, even though they lost at the Midseason Invitational, they hold that record from Phase 1. They're coming in as the number 1 seed coming into Phase 2.
It's huge. It's a plus 19 overall game record, and that's going to translate very well in Phase number 2. And I think that this is going to be a good way for them to kind of bounce back, because Armada is a team that was trying to do some desperation tactics, whereas Rival are preparing for every single SPL team. And I think that if Rival faced any other team, they probably actually win MSI. It was unfortunate that they had to face this underdog.
Yeah, Meerkat just a little bit too strong for them, of course, in the mid lane. We did get a chance to talk to PBM after the fact, and this is what he had to say at the bottom of your screen, quote, "We went over things we wanted to change and continue working on for Phase 2, end quote. So they're already looking forward, and I assume that we should do the same then, because they've got a really tough week to open up. They've got they've got Dignitas and the Pittsburgh Knights Thursday, Friday. So it's not like they're getting an easy matchup to come in after this loss. Let's start with Team Dignitas, because that's on Thursday. Dig also did not end up looking quite as strong as they were hoping at MSI, but still is one of those teams that looked like they were ready. They bounced back pretty well against Space Station last week.
That's true. Their first week matchup in Phase number 1, Dignitas did win that set, but then the next day, I believe it was, when Rival faced off against PK, that was a better set for them. So I think I have high hopes for Rival in both of their games. They've been challenged before in the regular split, and I don't have any problems with them and their performance then. I think it's all about how they perform at LAN, because thus far in the end of Season 5, it wasn't too good for PBM and the boys, and it wasn't too good now in MSI.
That is true, though they do have a world championship under their belt for PBM and Panda Cat, of course, so you know that they've got that pedigree. Dignitas is a team, if you look back at that set that Rival lost in Phase 1, it was one that it did go really long. It was a 5-game set, so you know that this isn't an unwinnable set by any means.
It was close, definitely. They almost reverse swept. I believe they lost the first 2, won the next 2, overall lost to Game 5. Their picks and bans are very solid. Their coach as well, Slaney, has been certainly helping out there, and I think going up against Dignitas and PK, if they can come out on top in those 2 sets, that the rest of the week should be very smooth for them.
PK is their matchup on Friday, as you alluded to, a team that I think everyone is still looking towards to see how they look, because they looked great towards the end of Phase 1 and then didn't really amount to much at MSI. the Pittsburgh Knights is a matchup that I'm always looking at. Final K versus Deathwalker. That's always a fun lane.
PK should be very interesting. I think that against rivals specifically, this matchup is going to be an epic one to watch.
Yeah, really, really fun in that one. I mean, we're always looking at Deathwalker versus Final K. I think Vote Arkell is another one you got to keep an eye on.
It's going to be aggressive. Arkell has always been challenged against Sadman specifically, but he always battles back, and he gets that first blood.
Yeah, first bloods were really the key, as you mentioned, for him, one of the highest ones for him in the league. Totally, thank you very much for joining us to talk Team Rival. We've got Dignitas. They already played once so far here in Phase 2, but they got a tough one up against Rival. Stay with us here on Esports Weekly. In week 1, phase 1, or maybe it was week 2, one of the early weeks in phase 1, Dignitas was able to take down Team Rival. We'll see if they can do the same here as we get started in phase 2. We've got Graham Hadfield, the correspondent here for Team Dignitas, joining us. Graham, as I mentioned, they took down Rival early on phase 1.
They did.
But it wasn't easy.
No, it was a good set between the two, if you think about it. It could have realistically gone either way with how that set went. Spoke to Ataraxia, first of all. I'll start off with that. He's the one that I got in touch with this week, because I try and switch it up with who I speak to for the most part.
Sure.
Not go to the same face, you know, get a bit of a different idea. He was really looking at like what happened with Rival in that first set of last time round, and he was like, listen, it was a close set between the two. But he feels that Rival's trajectory through phase 1 was just the same as Dignitas, if you think about it. Dignitas got really hot early on, and they got really comfortable, but then they got a little bit complacent and struggled. And he said, well, he felt Rival did the same thing. The only difference is it really showed for them against the Armada set at MSI. So both teams have had a very similar tale in that first phase.
That is true, but at the same time, Dignitas have had to show at least a little bit of something so far after the midseason patch. They took down Space Station.
But it's Space Station, and we kind of all expected that. Even, you know, the analysts and stuff around. Most of the fans at home had a feeling with how phase 1 went going into phase 2, and with how Dig, did at MSI as well. It was bound to happen. That first set was more a warm-up than anything else.
That's
a continuation.
True. They're coming in warm. That's a good point. But Rival's going to be pretty hungry. I was just talking about some of the matchups I expect to really look forward to in the Rival set versus Knights. But in this one, supports is what immediately jumps off the page to me. PBM versus Trixtank is one that's always a blast to watch.
And to be fair, every single one of these roles, with Trixtank as well, like every single role that Dignitas has and every on Rivals team as well, they're such a go back and forth matchup where either side could do well. Trixtank, though, I think has seen a lot more freedom this year for himself as well. We've spoken about it in phase 1, and I think that's just going to continue on into phase 2 a little bit more. The main points that Ataraxia mentioned was really when they talk about their complacency. Biggie had spoken to me about, they got a little bit too experimental. They had a bit too much fun towards the end of phase 1, and it kind of came back to haunt them. So I think you'll see quite a serious focus in this Rival set this week, because how well they're both going to play out.
Yeah, Rival is one of those teams that you have to be ready and prepared for, it feels like, because they're going to throw a lot of different things at you. And Dignitas' flexibility is something, you mentioned it for Trixtank, I think has been a really big boon for them this year. And right after midseason patch is the great time to be experimental, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then if you think about the actual players on this team as well, you've got Kiva in the jungle that's willing to play the Guardians. He can go the Cherio route, so to speak, is how I would call that, even though Cherio may not have been the very first person in there. But then you've also got, Trix that's able to play the Warriors. He doesn't mind playing mages if need be. It's not often we see mages in the duo lane, or the support role, I should say. It's not really in the duo lane anymore either. Or is it? We'll find out this year.
I guess we will. I do think that's a good point to bring up, though, is this meta. It seems like Dig and Rival aren't really the two teams I would expect to excel in this. Not that Arkell and Ataraxia aren't great players, but they are really traditional most of the time. Do you feel like Ataraxia is the one who can pull out the Zhong Kui or whatever?
It's funny because you say that, like, they're not traditional. I think Ataraxia is one of those hunters that have been around the scene. He played solo for a very little while. Once upon a time, we played even some cheeky Sylvanas in that. Didn't work out great.
Listen,
but it shows their willingness to experiment and play around with different gods.
Listen, Sylvanas ult has higher scaling than Kraken does. That's all. That was Ataraxia's whole argument. He's not wrong.
And all I'm saying on that, I'm not saying it's a good pick at all. All I was saying is it shows his ability and his willingness to experiment a little bit more. And I think that's something that Dignitas can definitely have fun with this split. But they've got to be careful too. And I think they see that themselves, where they started to move away quite a bit last split, away from where they had their bread and butter wins.
I'm really excited to see these predictions from all the casters on the team, because I think this is one of those sets that really could end up going either way. Feels like everyone's leaning a little bit more Dignitas, though, Graham.
I was dig on this one. I have to be, because I'm, their rep as well. My United comment earlier on, by the way, on that one, it was a United. I do think a United will be SK, just so you know. I know you mentioned it, of like, maybe you got it wrong. I'm like, nope.
Not me, that was Tom.
Nope, that's all the other casters that got that one wrong. This one, though, from Ataraxi's point of view, I think him and the team have looked at what's been going on in the scene and looked at what's been going on in the off season and said, listen, a lot of what they did, they're happy with the performance to an extent, but they feel they tapered off, and it's really focused on trying to get back to their strength and stick with it for the rest of the split here.
I do think the Dignitas is one of those teams that can look at what another successful team like, say, the Renegades have done as of late and apply it with putting their own style on it. They're not going to try and copycat you. They're going to look at what you did and then apply it to their own sort of play style. And I think that's the right way to do it.
I think one thing that Dignitas really want, and this is me just spitballing what I feel about them more than anything else, I really feel that Dignitas needs to take a little bit closer look towards Horrywind here and use a little bit of his NA knowledge, his little bit of an NA background to throw a bit of a mix into this roster, just a hair more. There's a lot of a difference between the European players, the North American players, and we're seeing that collapse this year. And I feel like mainly European players have done very well, but the ones that have had that little bit of spice of NA coming into it has really helped out to grow them forward.
And Hurry, one of the more comfortable mid laners, are playing Hunters a lot, and that's kind of the meta right now.
Sure.
Could be the case for them.
Could
Graham,
be.
thanks very
No
much for
problem.
joining us to talk about Team Dignitas. We're going to go to a quick break here, of course, but we got going to the Pittsburgh Knights right after this, see how they're feeling going to Phase 2. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. The Pittsburgh Knights are the team we're going to be talking about next. And normally this is John Finch's correspondent team, but as I mentioned, he's a little bit busy today. You see, he saw the episode, or the beginning of Up again, right after watching Finding Nemo, and upon realizing that Up is indeed sadder than Finding Nemo, has gone into hiding to really introspect and look a little bit closer on his inside and what made him think it wasn't the case in the first place. Glad for John to really understand what is happening in reality these days, though. In reality, we've got Taco subbing in for him here to talk about the Pittsburgh Knights. First of all, we're very happy for Finch, are we not?
Definitely. I mean, this is something that we both tried to talk him through beforehand. He
Many
didn't
times.
really listen, and then, when he experienced it for himself, we were like, we understand, man. We understand where you're coming from.
It's about time. I mean, Finch has been an owner of bad opinions before, but this was unlike anything we had seen. Luckily, he's back on the right page, just like the Pittsburgh Knights want to do as we start off with them for Phase 2. What happened with this team, Taco? Because they were looking so good coming in MSI, and then they got a bad draw. They got Renegades round 1, but they got trounced there.
It was definitely a little bit of a surprise for, I think, all parties involved. Pittsburgh Knights were probably expecting to come out a lot better than what they actually did against the Renegades. It definitely, I mean, the level of standard that this team tends to hold themselves to, just individually speaking, it caught everybody by surprise, including the team. But I think that Pittsburgh Knights were also very realistic with themselves, and they were very willing to admit the fact that this was just Renegades coming through and having a much stronger performance.
Renegades were certainly the freight train, so to speak, and PK kind of just stepped into the tracks more or less. Phase 2, this is a new life kind of for PK. I think that this is one of their spots where this is a team that could make some noise.
One issue that Pittsburgh Knights definitely had at MSI, at least, is that they seemed a little bit stuck in what they wanted to strategize around. They seemed very adamant in trying to look for that Hevel jungle prioritization for adapting, and it just didn't really seem as though that was the intention from Renegades. I mean, Renegades and Splice, I think, both kind of split the meta wide open over at MSI. And for Pittsburgh Knights now, I think the focus is solely going to be on execution, because even with all things considered and Renegades having come through with a better performance, I still personally believe that Pittsburgh Knights is a top-tier team. They are certainly capable of becoming number one in the standings. It really just comes down to them maybe just needing to revamp some of their original game plans surrounding that mid-jungle aspect and look more towards the duo.
Now, if there's one player who's going to kind of be one of the faces of this transition, if they're going to be one of those top-end teams, right now everyone's talking about Hunter players because they're not really playing Hunters these days. Vote stepping up and being one of these carries, I think, is going to be key for them.
Dual lane is just getting so much farm right now, and it's kind of obvious that Hunters have been loving this transition for multiple reasons, but Vote is someone that I think can really be a step-up factor here for the Pittsburgh Knights. He's definitely a competent player in his own right, has tons of experience and knowledge of that role, but it's more so about ensuring that he just gets those comfortable matchups to where he can actually try to take advantage of all the farm that's being given to him in duo right now.
And it may not seem like he's one of those guys who's going to pull out the weird stuff, but I seem to recall him playing some Camazot's ADC back in the day when Camazot's was kind of the flavor of the month. I feel like Vote can kind of embrace that weird, who knows what anyone's going to play their role.
Vote he's a flexible guy. I mean, I think that when you have a player that's capable of extending his god pool not only into the mages and assassins, but traditional hunters as well, it certainly makes things a lot more open-ended as far as what Pittsburgh Knights is capable of assigning in other roles. I think that with Vote, if he is able to essentially rise up for the team here, then that could give Zeros or even Deathwalker a little bit more of an opportunity to try and getting some more involvement as well towards that duo lane, whether it's from early game rotations or just from general team fighting, trying to help better assist the Hunter.
Now, this is going to be a tough test at the very beginning of Phase 2, though, with Team Rival. How do you think the Knights match up against one of the top-tier teams in the league?
I actually think that Rival should be a little bit worried here. I'm kind of scared for anybody, especially the first team that has to play against Pittsburgh Knights, because this is a team where that performance at MSI, I guarantee you they're not happy about it in the slightest, and they are going to come into Phase 2 with a vengeance. That's just the way that it's always been with members like Adapting, Deathwalker. These guys are hungry to prove that they made this powerhouse team for a reason.
Plus, Adapting and the boys just traveled. They went to Pittsburgh, going to see the Knights facilities and all that kind of stuff, had a gaming convention there, Replay FX. Hopefully they absorbed some Permani's power and all that kind of stuff and are ready to go. But Lord help the Rival if Adapting had a bad TSA experience or there was some turbulence on that flight. Angry Kenneth is one you do not want to mess with.
And I don't want to say that he's angry by any means after MSI, because it happens, and you can't always be number one at every single event that you are brought to, but at the same time, I am definitely expecting this Pittsburgh Knights team to really just come out aggressively.
Now let's see what everyone else has to say about this setup, though, because this is going to be one of those great sets, and we're split down the middle. Hindu and Finch siding with Team Rival. Tom and Toli feeling like PK might be the ones to take it. You're a tiebreaker, Taco. Where are you leaning?
It's a tough call, but I think I gotta hand it to Rival. I've really been a big fan of what FinoK has been able to accomplish so far, and well, I guess this will be an excellent challenge to see where Deathwalker kind of stands up currently.
That's true. FinoK, one of the premier solo laners, and has really taken one of those premier slots, I would say. Deathwalker's had it for a long time, but you don't just get to hold it forever, and FinoK definitely coming for that king slot in the solo lane. Taka, thank you very much for joining us. Talk PK. As I mentioned, they are coming back from Pittsburgh, so hopefully they are now all certified Sheets freaks and they're ready to go for Phase 2. I know that's what PK, the org, wants from their players, of course. We're almost towards the end of Esports Weekly now. We're going to go over Obey Alliance, formerly Trifecta, and see how they're feeling as they kick off Phase 2. Welcome back, everybody. This time it's a new-ish roster for Obey Alliance and a new org title, still owned by Shook and all the boys, but now Obey Alliance coming back. A storied organization back into the Smite scene. Always excited to talk about that and to do it. We've got Hindu Man joining us once again. All right, but we got to start somewhere else.
Yeah, Ataraxia, pretty prime. Excited.
No. This is like Weekend and Mazwal still there. Wowie. Yeah. No, flip to that page.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. I've got it here.
Weekend had a tweet the other night.
Oh, we're going to start with that?
We have to. We have to, right? I mean, this is the current esports happenings.
Okay, sure. Weekend had a tweet.
Weekend had a tweet.
You're leading this. I'm just going to follow. What are we doing?
Weekend had a tweet.
Because you're doing this in dangerous territory.
I sure am. Yeah, I know I am. I'm treading into dangerous waters, of course.
That's
here.
what I was like, well, you better
look. Weekend said that there are two types of teammates that once they leave the team, they're going to react in certain ways.
Yeah.
Referenced Incon and in the videos that he likes to make. He said that Ionic may have left Obey a present in the toilet there. There's no way this is true.
I'm going to say what I said to you about this, too. I think that's been there since Lasbra left. And I just don't think anyone saw it, but that was the situation.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's the theory.
And the people that know the Lasbra stories, yeah, there you go.
Okay,
yeah. See? Kept it PG.
Real PG, of
Warned
course.
you.
Yep. Listen, I led the horse to water. You jumped in and drowned. That's all.
I was thirsty. What can I say? You know.
Look, new org now, still the same owner, of course, but
new rookie
and Mineral.
Me,
yeah. Where do you want to start? Do you think that this facelift will be a big difference maker?
So I'm going to basically talk about Mineral first of all, because that's the major talking point. They bring in Mineral, Ionic off this team. He moves to Luminosity, and then when you think of the name Mineral, my immediate thought was about him and Wowie, his connection with Wowie on this roster. They've played together previously in the minor leagues before, so immediately I reached out to Wowie to get some information on what he feels, why did they pick him up. And it really was like, we needed some chemistry, we needed someone that could make decisions in the game. I also knew him, I played with him before, I knew the comfort level that he's going to bring, and it's working out really well from their point of view. Now, Mineral, obviously, he's been around the scene for quite a while, playing through the minor leagues and such, but this is his very first call-up to the SPL, and a very important time, too, realistically, with how this trifecta / now Obey roster went through that very first phase. It was a real strugglesome time for them, where they couldn't find synergy. Roster changes happen. We mentioned Lasbro in, Moswell now in for that team now, and then Ionic now moving away for this Mineral pickup. It's pretty much a different roster than the one that started out phase 1.
Yeah, it's a very different look for them, and I think that's the big thing to remember. It's that, they only got a new support, and this team clearly had problems besides that, and maybe it's not enough of a change, but I don't think that Moswell really had time to settle with this roster in phase 1. I think that this is basically a completely new roster anyways.
Yeah, and that's when we're looking at what I spoke to Worry about with how practice was going, he was like, listen, since having Mineral added to this team, it feels like they've been really good because they've been able to play a little bit more focus on the early game. Moswell, Weekend, and Mineral seem to be getting along very well in the early game, and they're starting to find their own identity now. They're starting to decide what's good for them and how they can play. Worry also feels that his god pool's been able to be expanded a little bit because he felt like he was kind of limited with the selections that they were having in certain roles. And now Mineral, with his wide god pool, as he put it, is available. It's giving them a little bit more depth, a little bit more options for this team to try and make success.
Well, they've got to do that early game well. You mentioned that they're feeling pretty confident there, but you have to be up against a team like SK Gaming that's going to try to exploit you at that part of the game. Do you think that this newfound strength might be enough to set them up against SK?
In fairness to me, I think it's a 50-50 coin toss. I think SK, and the best thing is, talking to Worry, he felt like last time they played, they lost 3-0 to SK Gaming, but he didn't feel like their team had much prep time for that real set. This time around, though, they've made adjustments and are more motivated than any other split previously. Plus, they do feel as well that with the changes they've made, as long as they can get through the early game, this was the direct quote, he says, I don't want to get zapulated and adapt quickly against their early game playstyle. That's what the game plan is for Obey in this set.
I'm glad that Wowie seems ready because Zap has been on a nightmare train.
I don't think it's going to stop if he continues. If he's playing the way he was playing so far phase 1, I think Zap is the one to really look to cause problems for so many different carries in the league.
It's been a scorched earth policy for SK in the duo lane. Everyone left in the dust behind them. And it looks like the casters feel like they're going to leave Obey in the dust this week.
I get it. I completely understand that too. If you think about the fact that we said this team struggled in phase 1, right?
Yep.
But then we've got roster changes, and we always know whenever a roster change comes through, it doesn't immediately fix everything. It takes a little bit of a while. It takes some time working as a team, gelling, working out where your strengths and weaknesses are.
Obey Alliance trying to bring everyone back and make them obey once again. Graham, thank you very much for joining us to talk about the old/new roster of Trifecta/Obey Alliance. We still got to go over what's going on in the SCL and SML. We had a full week of games there, so stay tuned here on Esports Weekly. Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. It was a full week of the SCL and SML as we get back into the swing of things here in Phase 2. And if you haven't been watching the SCL or SML, this is a great time to get into it because this is the time where everyone's still kind of experimenting with mid-season patch and what gods are good, what items are good. It's not like all this innovation only happens in the SPL. We've seen plenty of strats taken from the lower-end teams. You may have heard Renegades in their interviews talking about their practice up against Simplicity. That was a big deal for them, so make sure you're tuning in. Here's what you may have missed. We're going to start with the PS4 EU standings. VGS Gods sitting up on top. It was Out Cold Gaming who came to land, remember, out of this region. They start off a little bit cold, 1-1. Get it? EU Xbox, on the other hand, Rival continues to look great, but Dabo's Disciples with some roster changes, and Rival again swap mid laners. Fly went from Rival to Dabo's, now from Dabo's back to Rival. Dobson goes back to his Disciples, but that hasn't really made them hay too much quite yet, but this is their first week where they had Dobson back in the mid lane with them. Looking forward to that rematch. The former teammates against former teammates and current teammates, I think, is how that works. On the North American side of things, we expect basically Nemesis to continue to dominate the PS4 side, and they continue to oblige us. This team looks like they have no contest in this league. We'll see if anyone can step up and take down their Nemesis. And then on the Xbox side of things, Hype Unit, they had Crimson come in his first debut week in the ADC role and looked very good. Inbound died to Fire Giant. That was the most noteworthy part for me. It was my favorite part of the entire week of the SCL, was watching Inbound die to the Fire Giant. It was very fun. Go watch the VOD, trust me. Onto the onto the schedule for this week of the SCL. We're gonna see Dabo Disciples up against Team Jellyfish. See how Dobson continues to integrate there. VGS Gods, we'll see if they can hold on to their top spot in PS4 Europe. And then Fatal Ambition up against Blanche Fan Club. Two teams that are trying to catch up to Hype Unit. BFC, by the way, the old school Heat Uprise team, now, of course, without Crimson as he is on Hype Unit, but that was a top-tier contender in Xbox NA not that long ago, so make sure you tune in for that one as we close out on Monday. Now it's time to move over to the SML, and we saw a couple games in Europe this week. Simplicity continues to look way better than they have any right to. This team is SPL level by my estimation. Team Queso off to a hot start as well, though, sitting at 2-0-3. Both Exordium and Horizon Union, we got our first chances to see those two new additions to the minor league. They struggled. Still getting acclimated, to the European minor league. As for North America, how about Sanguine? This team is so much fun to watch. If you haven't watched this team in a while, you saw them in MSI, hey, they're pretty good. Trust me, they are better than you think. They win another one. If you missed top 5 plays earlier, their jungler Panatom got 2 quadras and 1 triple in the same game. Not in a set, the same game. Absolutely nuts. Armada did win their offline game, evening their record at 1-1. That was the team that came out of that region, of course, to the MSI and played very, very well, but Sanguine's on top right now. Wouldn't be surprised if it stayed that way for just a little bit. Here's this week's schedule coming up. Sanguine's games will be offline, but you can see Armada versus Team Cryptic and Space Station Gold versus Team Exilium a little bit later on Tuesday. And then to start us off that day, we've got Flashpoint Simplicity, which is going to be a great game, and Out Cold Horizon Union. Horizon Union looking to bounce back after a tough week 2. That does it for the SML. Again, that's on Tuesdays, 11 a.m., mixer.com/SmiteGames, same spot every time. Let's take a look at the SPL standings because it's not like we're starting at 0-0 again, even though we're in the second week of Phase 2. All those records carry over. Not so good for the likes of Space Station Gaming, Obey Alliance, and LG, but maybe they can make some hay here in the second phase. Rival is your top seed going into week 2, but they've got a matchup up against Team Dignitas and PK. 1, 2, and 3. All playing against each other to kick us off here this week. We're starting off with E United up against SK Gaming. Then Rival begins their doubleheader. They end Thursday with Dignitas, open Friday with PK, and then we get our first look at the new look Obey Alliance up against SK Gaming on Friday. Rival this week, this is the test, right? I mean, they had a tough week at MSI. I mean, we get it. Armada kind of cheesed you. They're saying all the right things, and they've done everything they can. Nothing they can do right now to prove that they're ready to go for Phase 2. This is how we know this team is going to be good and healthy moving forward. Look, if they go 0-2, is it the end of the world? No. PBM and boys are still going to be just fine. But if you're a Rival fan, do you really want to lose to Armada and then Dignitas and then PK? I don't think so. Big week for Team Rival. Prove they are still on top of the SPL, so make sure you tune in 11 a.m. starting on Thursday and Friday as well. Mixer.com/SmiteGame is a place to go. If you want to get in touch with us here at Esports Weekly, at SmitePro on Twitter, or at Aggro if you want to get directly to me. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next week here on Esports Weekly.